Yo, what's up, guys? Hope you guys are doing good. So today we're going to see what if Naruto was raised in the Scooby-Doo universe and build a legendary harem, part 1. So before we start, subscribe to our channel and like this video. So let's get into the video. The boy who fell from another world. The autumn wind carried the scent of fallen leaves through Crystal Cove, a peculiar seaside town where the supernatural seemed as common as morning fog. In a small apartment above the Coolsville Community Center, a 13-year-old boy with spiky blonde hair and whisker marks on his cheeks sat cross-legged on a worn meditation mat, sweat dripping down his face as he struggled to maintain his focus. Naruto Uzumaki's hands trembled as he tried to mold the strange energy within him. Chakra, Master Nakamura called it. The elderly martial arts instructor had been the one to find him 7 years ago, a terrified 6-year-old who had appeared in the middle of Route 66 during a thunderstorm, speaking a language no one understood, with no memory of how he'd gotten there. All Naruto remembered was fire, screaming, and a massive fox made of pure malevolent energy. Concentrate, Naruto, came the patient voice of Velma, distinctly from across the room. The intelligent brunette sat at a desk covered in ancient scrolls and modern scientific equipment, her orange turtleneck sweater already rumpled despite it being only 10 in the morning. She pushed her square glasses up her nose as she made notes in her ever-present notebook. You're trying to force the chakra instead of guiding it. Remember what Master Nakamura said. It's like water, not a battering ram. Easy for you to say, Velma. Naruto grunted, his concentration breaking as the small flame he'd been trying to produce in his palm sputtered out for the 15th time that morning. You're not the one trying to make fire appear out of thin air. Velma set down her pen and walked over, kneeling beside him with that analytical look that meant she was about to launch into an explanation. Over the past 3 years since they met during the mystery of the Coolsville cave creature, Naruto had learned to recognize all of Velma's expressions. This one usually preceded a lecture, but unlike when other people lectured him, Velma's explanations actually helped. It's not thin air, she corrected gently, pulling out a diagram she'd been working on. Based on my research into the scrolls Master Nakamura provided and the energy readings I've been taking during your training sessions, chakra is a combination of physical energy drawn from your cells and spiritual energy drawn from your consciousness and experiences. When you try to force it, you're creating an imbalance. She pointed to a series of graphs. See? When you're calm and focused, the energy flow is smooth, these green lines here. But when you get frustrated, the readings spike erratically, these red, jagged patterns. You're literally fighting against yourself. Naruto stared at the graphs, his blue eyes narrowing in concentration. This was what made Velma different from most people. Where others saw his failure and told him to try harder, she saw patterns, data, reasons. She helped him understand not just what he was doing wrong, but why. So I need a what? Be calm all the time. He slumped his shoulders. That's not really my style, Velma. You know me. I'm more of a charge in and figure it out as I go kind of guy. A small smile crossed Velma's face. Even noticed. You've triggered 17 traps in the last month alone during our mystery investigations. Fred's starting to design his trap plans, specifically accounting for what he calls the Naruto variable. Hey, I helped solve those cases. You did, Velma agreed, and Naruto felt a warm glow at her genuine tone. Your instincts are actually quite good, and your physical abilities have improved remarkably since Master Nakamura started training you. You can run faster, jump higher, and take hits that would hospitalize a normal person. But Naruto, that's exactly why the chakra control is so important. You have enormous potential. I've never seen energy readings like yours in any of my research. But without control, you're like a nuclear reactor without containment. Powerful, but dangerous. She stood and offered him her hand. Come on, let's take a break and get some lunch. The gang's meeting at the malt shop in 20 minutes anyway. We can resume training afterward, and I want to try a different approach based on some biofeedback techniques I've been researching. Naruto took her hand, letting her pull him up. Even this simple contact sent a little jolt through him. Not chakra, but something else he didn't quite understand yet. Velma was his best friend, the person who'd spent countless hours helping him learn English when he'd first arrived, who'd worked tirelessly to research his condition and abilities when everyone else thought he was just a weird kid with psychological problems. She was also really pretty, though Naruto tried not to think about that too much. It made his concentration even worse. As they packed up their training materials and headed downstairs, Naruto reflected on how much his life had changed. Master Nakamura had taken him in after finding him that stormy night, recognizing the chakra within him, even though the old man's own abilities were limited to basic enhancement techniques. The master had given him a home, discipline, and purpose, but it had been Velma and her friends, Fred Jones, Daphne Blake, Shaggy Rogers, and Scooby-Doo, who had given him belonging. The Mystery Incorporated gang had welcomed him without question when Master Nakamura had brought him along to help investigate strange occurrences at the Coolsville Museum 3 years ago. Naruto had been 10, barely speaking English and completely overwhelmed by everything in this strange world. But Velma had patiently helped him communicate. Daphne had shown him kindness when others mocked his broken speech. Fred had included him in the team's plans, and Shaggy and Scooby had made him laugh even when he felt lost and alone. Now, at 13, Naruto was an official member of Mystery Incorporated, even if his contributions sometimes caused more chaos than solutions. The Coolsville Malt Shop was a 1950s-style diner with red leather booths, chrome fixtures, and a jukebox that exclusively played oldies. Naruto and Velma arrived to find Fred already there, his ascot perfectly straight as always, studying what looked like architectural blueprints spread across their usual corner booth. Daphne sat beside him, her purple dress and pink tights immaculate, though she was currently focused on teaching herself what appeared to be lock-picking from an instruction manual. "Jinkies, Daphne, is that legal?" Velma asked as they slid into the booth. Daphne looked up with a mischievous smile that made Naruto's heart skip a beat, another thing that had been happening more frequently lately. "Perfectly legal to learn. I'm tired of always being the one who gets trapped. If I can pick locks, I can escape faster and help with the mysteries more effectively." "That's actually brilliant tactical thinking," Fred said approvingly. "If you master that, we could incorporate it into trap designs. A secondary release mechanism that only you know how to activate." "See? Fred gets it." Daphne winked at Naruto. "How is training, Naruto? Make any progress with the fire thing?" Naruto slumped in his seat. "Not really. I can't get the chakra to do what I want. It's like trying to grab water with my fingers. It just slips away every time." "Maybe you're thinking about it wrong," Fred suggested, rolling up his blueprints. "When I'm designing traps, if I focus too much on the specific mechanism, I lose sight of the overall structure. What if instead of trying to create fire, you focus on the feeling you want to create? Heat, light, energy?" Velma pulled out her notebook. "That's actually consistent with some of the meditation techniques I've been researching. Visualization through emotional association rather than technical precision." "Fred, that might work." Before Naruto could respond, the door to the malt shop burst open and Shaggy stumbled in, his green shirt askew and his face pale with fear. Scooby-Doo bounded in after him, equally terrified, and both of them practically dove into the booth, squishing everyone together. "Like, guys, you're not going to believe what Scoob and I just saw." Shaggy gasped. "Ria, haute relevable," Scooby added, his ears flat against his head. Naruto perked up immediately. Mystery Hunts always got his blood pumping. "What did you see?" "We were like taking a shortcut through the old Caldwell estate. You know, that creepy abandoned mansion on Hillcrest Avenue. And we saw this totally terrifying ghost. It was floating through the walls, moaning all spooky-like, and it had these glowing red eyes." Fred immediately pulled out a fresh notebook. "Can you describe it in detail?" "It was huge, man. Like, maybe 7 feet tall, all wispy and transparent, wearing some kind of old-fashioned suit. And when it saw us, it, like, pointed right at us and said something in a weird language before these chains appeared out of nowhere and tried to grab us." Velma's eyes lit up with that special gleam she got when a mystery presented itself. "Chains?" "Physical chains appeared from a ghost." "That's impossible," Daphne said, though her voice carried excitement rather than dismissal. "Ghosts can't manipulate physical objects unless it's not actually a ghost," Naruto finished, grinning. "Someone's faking it." "Exactly," Scooby agreed, though he still looked terrified. Fred was already sketching out a plan. "Okay, gang, looks like we've got a mystery on our hands. The Caldwell estate has been abandoned for over 30 years since old Jeremiah Caldwell disappeared. If someone's using it as a base for a fake haunting, there's got to be a reason. I'll research the property records and the history of the estate," Velma said, already typing notes into her phone. "There might be a connection to recent events in town. I could check with my parents," Daphne offered. "The Blakes have been in Coolsville for generations. They might know something about the Caldwell family." Naruto felt the familiar rush of excitement that came with a new mystery. "When do we check it out?" "Tonight," Fred decided. We'll meet at 7, do preliminary surveillance, and then form a plan. Everyone bring your standard mystery-solving gear and Naruto. I know. Don't rush ahead without the team. Don't trigger any traps if I can help it. And if I do find something supernatural for real, call for backup immediately. Fred grinned. You're learning. 3 mysteries ago, you would have just charged in. That's because 3 mysteries ago, he hadn't been tied up in an abandoned lighthouse for 4 hours waiting for us to find him, Velma said dryly. Traumatic experiences are excellent teachers. The gang spent the next few hours preparing. Velma disappeared into the Coolsville library, emerging with copies of property deeds, newspaper articles from the 1990s, and geological surveys of the Hillcrest area. Daphne made calls to various family friends, gathering gossip and historical tidbits. Fred worked on trap designs and surveillance equipment. Shaggy and Scooby, after being bribed with a promise of triple sandwiches, agreed to help with the preliminary stakeout. Naruto returned to the community center for more training, but this time with renewed focus. Master Nakamura noticed immediately. Your spirit is lighter today, the old man observed as Naruto went through his conditioning exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, and the complex footwork drills that were supposed to help with chakra circulation. What changed? We've got a new mystery, Naruto explained between breaths. Ghost at the Caldwell estate. Probably fake, but you never know in this town. Master Nakamura, a thin man in his 70s with a long white beard and surprisingly bright eyes, nodded thoughtfully. And this brings you joy? The hunt. Yeah, it's like when we're solving mysteries, everything makes sense. There are clues, patterns, evidence. It's not like trying to control chakra where I just fail over and over. With mysteries, I can actually help. I could do something. The old master was quiet for a long moment as Naruto completed his set. Then he said, perhaps that is your problem with chakra, Naruto-kun. You see it as separate from yourself, something to be conquered. But chakra is you. It is your life force, your will, your spirit. When you hunt mysteries with your friends, you do not think about running. You simply run. You do not think about being brave. You simply act. This is instinct, natural flow. Naruto paused mid-push-up. So you're saying I should treat chakra like solving mysteries? I am saying you should stop treating chakra as an enemy to be defeated and start treating it as a friend to be understood. You trust your friends? Yes. You work with them, adapt to their strengths, support their weaknesses. Of course. Then do the same with your chakra. Learn its nature, work with its flow, adapt to its rhythm. Stop trying to force it to obey and start inviting it to dance. It was the most poetic thing Master Nakamura had ever said, and Naruto wasn't entirely sure he understood it. But as he resumed his exercises, he tried to feel the chakra differently, not as a stubborn force he had to wrangle, but as a partner he needed to cooperate with. By the time 7 o'clock arrived and Naruto met the gang at the gates of the Caldwell estate, he felt different, more centered. Somehow, the estate was genuinely creepy. Iron gates hung askew on rusted hinges, and the driveway was cracked and overgrown with weeds. The mansion itself loomed against the darkening sky, a Victorian monstrosity with broken windows, sagging balconies, and at least one tower that looked ready to collapse. Gargoyles glared down from the roofline, and dead trees surrounded the property like skeletal guardians. Like, why do the creepy places always look this creepy? Shaggy whimpered. Just once, I like to investigate a haunting at a pizza parlor or a candy factory. Statistically speaking, Velma said, adjusting her glasses as she examined the gate's lock. Locations with Gothic architecture and signs of decay create psychological priming for fear responses. People expect these places to be haunted, so they're more likely to interpret ambiguous stimuli as supernatural. Jinkies, Velma, that doesn't make it less scary, Daphne said, though she was already picking the gate's lock with impressive efficiency. Within seconds, the gate swung open with a horror movie-perfect creak. Fred had his flashlight out, along with what looked like an EMF detector and a digital voice recorder. Standard formation, everyone. Velma and I will take point with the detection equipment. Daphne, you're on lookout for traps and escape routes. Naruto, you're with Shaggy and Scooby on secondary investigation. If anything seems off, signal immediately. They moved up the driveway in a tight group, flashlights cutting through the gathering darkness. Naruto's senses were on high alert, not just his normal sight and hearing, but something else. Master Nakamura had taught him that chakra enhanced perception, And while Naruto couldn't control it actively yet, sometimes in moments of focus, he could feel things others couldn't. Right now, he felt something, a presence, maybe, or just the oppressive atmosphere of the creepy mansion. According to my research, Velma whispered as they approached the front door. Jeremiah Caldwell was a wealthy industrialist who made his fortune in mining. He disappeared in 1993 under mysterious circumstances. Last seen entering his study, never seen again. The estate was searched thoroughly, but no body was ever found. The property's been in legal limbo ever since, tied up in inheritance disputes. Any connection to current events? Fred asked. Possibly. There's been renewed interest in the property recently. A development company called Hexagon Enterprises has been trying to acquire the land for a new shopping complex. The last hearing was scheduled for next week. Daphne's eyes narrowed. So someone might be faking a haunting to scare people away from the property? Or to delay the legal proceedings? Velma confirmed. The front door was unlocked, which was the first suspicious sign. Inside, the mansion was a maze of dusty hallways, sheet-covered furniture, and portraits whose eyes seemed to follow them. Naruto stuck close to Shaggy and Scooby, who despite their fear, had excellent instincts for spotting danger. They split up to cover more ground, with Fred and Velma heading toward the study where Caldwell had disappeared, Daphne checking the upper floors, and Naruto's group investigating the ground floor and basement. Like, why do we always get the basement? Shaggy complained as they descended creaky wooden stairs into darkness. Basements are where all the scary stuff happens. Because we're expendable, Scooby said mournfully. You guys aren't expendable, Naruto said, though he was nervous too. The basement felt wrong, cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. You're the best trap detectors in the group. Remember the creeper case? You spotted that hidden panel before anyone else. Rhea, that's true. Scooby perked up slightly. The basement was enormous, filled with old mining equipment, crates, and what looked like a small laboratory setup. Naruto's flashlight swept across beakers, old papers, and, guys, he whispered urgently, look at this. On a workbench sat fresh equipment. New beakers, recently used based on the liquid residue. Chemical formulas written on a whiteboard in handwriting that couldn't be 30 years old. And most damning of all, a laptop. Modern, probably less than 2 years old, sitting next to an old leather journal. Romeo's Reen here recently, Scooby said. Naruto was about to investigate further when he felt it. That same presence from outside, but stronger now. The temperature dropped dramatically, and their breath misted in the air. Guys, Shaggy's voice climbed several octaves. I think we got company. The ghost materialized right in front of them, 7 feet tall, just like Shaggy had described, with glowing red eyes and wearing an old-fashioned suit. But what caught Naruto's attention wasn't the appearance. It was the chains. They weren't props or illusions. Naruto could feel the chakra in them. Actual energy manipulation, the kind Master Nakamura had told him was theoretically possible, but incredibly rare in this. That's not a fake. Naruto shouted, run. The chain shot forward with impossible speed. Shaggy and Scooby bolted up the stairs, screaming loud enough to alert the others. But Naruto stood his ground for just a moment, watching the chains move. They had a pattern, a rhythm, like the energy in his own body, but external, controlled. Someone with chakra abilities was doing this. A chain wrapped around his ankle and yanked. Naruto hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the wind from his lungs. He was dragged backward toward the ghost, which opened its mouth in a silent scream that somehow was the most terrifying sound he'd never heard. Acting on instinct, Naruto focused, not on creating fire or performing a technique, but on the feeling he got when he was with his friends. Safety, trust, cooperation. His chakra responded. It was small, barely noticeable, but blue energy flickered around his hands for just a second. When he grabbed the chain and pushed that energy into it, something disrupted. The chain wavered, loosened just enough for him to slip free. Naruto scrambled up the stairs as the ghost, or whatever it was, let out a roar that shook the entire basement. He burst into the main hallway to find the whole gang assembled, Fred already organizing a retreat. Everyone out now, Fred commanded. We need to regroup and plan properly. They ran for the exit, but the mansion itself seemed to fight them. Doors slammed shut on their own. Hallways seemed to rearrange themselves, and the temperature continued to drop. Daphne nearly fell through a weak floorboard, but Naruto grabbed her hand and pulled her up, their eyes meeting for a brief moment before they kept running. Finally, They burst through the front door and didn't stop until they reached the mystery machine, parked safely outside the estate gates. Everyone was breathing hard, except Velma, who was already analyzing data from Fred's equipment. "That was definitely not a normal fake haunting," she said, her voice shaking slightly, fear but also excitement. The EMF readings were off the charts. The temperature dropped 15 degrees in 30 seconds, and these audio recordings picked up frequencies that shouldn't be possible with conventional equipment. "And the chains," Naruto added, catching his breath. "They weren't props. I felt energy in them, like chakra, but not mine." Everyone looked at him. Since joining the gang, Naruto had been open about his abilities, though they didn't fully understand them. Velma had theorized that chakra was related to the various supernatural occurrences that plague their investigations, part of some larger scientific principle they hadn't discovered yet. "You felt chakra from the ghosts?" Velma's eyes went wide. That means either ghosts are real and can use chakra," Fred said slowly, "or someone with abilities like Naruto is faking this haunting using techniques we don't understand." "Either way," Daphne said, brushing dust from her dress, "this just became way more complicated than a simple land grab scheme." Naruto looked back at the mansion, his hands still tingling from that brief moment when his chakra had actually responded to his will. Something about the danger, the need to protect himself and his friends, had made it work. Master Nakamura's words echoed in his mind. "Stop trying to force it and start inviting it to dance." "We need more information," Velma declared. "I'll cross-reference chakra manifestations with historical records of supernatural phenomena in Coolsville. There might be other cases where energy manipulation was involved. I'll redesign our approach strategy," Fred added. "If we're dealing with someone who has abilities like Naruto, conventional traps won't work. We need to think differently." Daphne pulled out her phone. "I'll see what else my family knows about Caldwell. If he had abilities like Naruto, there might be legends or stories that weren't in official records. And like Scoob and I will stay very far away from that nightmare mansion," Shaggy declared. Riri far. Naruto felt a surge of affection for his friends. They didn't fully understand what he was, but they adapted, accepted, and worked with him anyway. That was what made them special. As they drove back into town, Naruto sat between Velma and Daphne in the back of the mystery machine, very aware of Velma's shoulder pressed against his as she took notes, and of Daphne's hand resting casually near his on the seat. Both girls were focused on the mystery, brilliant in their own ways. Velma with her analytical mind and scientific approach, Daphne with her intuition and practical skills. Naruto was starting to realize that the mystery he was most confused about wasn't the haunted mansion. It was the strange feeling he got whenever he was close to either of them. Later that night, back at the community center, Naruto sat with Master Nakamura and recounted everything that had happened. The old master listened carefully, occasionally sipping tea, his expression thoughtful. "You manifested chakra when you needed to protect yourself," he said finally. "This is natural. Fear and necessity are powerful teachers. But Naruto-kun, relying on crisis to activate your abilities is dangerous. You must learn to access that state of mind without requiring danger." "How do I do that? Tell me, what were you thinking when the chakra responded?" Naruto thought back. I was thinking about my friends, about how they make me feel safe, how we work together. I stopped trying to force the chakra to obey and just felt it. Like you said, like a dance partner instead of an enemy." Master Nakamura smiled, the first genuine smile Naruto had seen from him in weeks. "Then you have discovered the truth that many chakra users never learn. Power does not come from domination, but from harmony. Your bonds with others strengthen your spirit, and strong spirit creates strong chakra. But I still can't control it on command. Not yet, but you have found the path. Now you must walk it, step by step, day by day. Continue your training with Miss Dinkley. Her scientific approach complements your instinctive nature. Work with your friends on their mysteries. Practical application teaches what theory cannot. And most importantly, be patient with yourself." Naruto nodded, feeling more hopeful than he had in months. "Master, about the mansion, if someone else in this world can use chakra, what does that mean? Where did I really come from?" The old master's expression grew sad. "I do not know, Naruto-kun. When I found you, I recognized the chakra within you because I had encountered it once before, many years ago. But the person I knew is long gone, and they never spoke of where their power originated. I have searched for answers, but this world seems to have forgotten that chakra once existed here. Do you think I'll ever find out who I really am, where I came from? I believe that your mysteries, both supernatural and personal, will reveal themselves in time. For now, focus on who you are becoming, not who you might have been. You are Naruto Uzumaki, member of Mystery Incorporated, student of the martial arts, and from what I observe, a young man beginning to understand matters of the heart. Naruto's face went red. What? I'm not. Master Nakamura chuckled, a rare sound. I am old, not blind. The way you speak of Miss Dinkley and Miss Blake tells me much. But that is a different mystery, one you must solve yourself. After their conversation, Naruto lay in his small room, staring at the ceiling. His mind raced with questions about the Caldwell estate, about the Chakra user who might be behind the haunting, about his own origins. But mixed with those thoughts were images of Velma's excited expression when she discovered a clue, of Daphne's confident smile when she picked that lock, of how both of them had looked at him with concern when they'd regrouped after the mansion. The next morning, Naruto woke early and went through his training routine with new determination. He practiced the chakra exercises Velma had designed based on her research. And for the first time, instead of trying to force results, he focused on the feeling, that sense of connection and cooperation he'd felt in the basement. A small blue glow appeared around his hands and stayed there for almost 10 seconds before fading. Progress. He met Velma at the library later that morning. She'd been there all night, judging by the coffee cups and the slight shadows under her eyes. I found something, she said immediately, spreading out old newspapers on the table. Look at this. 1952 mysterious disappearance of a woman named Hiroshi Tanaka, last seen at what is now the Caldwell estate. And here, 1973, reports of strange lights and unusual weather phenomena at the property. And get this, in 1987, 6 years before Caldwell disappeared, there was a report of someone performing martial arts demonstrations on the grounds that involved impossible feats of strength and agility. Naruto leaned over the articles, his shoulder brushing Velma's. She didn't move away. You think all of these are connected to Chakra? I think Coolsville has a hidden history of people with abilities like yours. And I think the Caldwell estate is somehow central to it all. Look at this. She pulled out a geological survey. The estate is built over a convergence of underground water channels and mineral deposits that create unusual electromagnetic properties. What if that location naturally amplifies Chakra, like a power-up spot in a video game? Velma smiled at the reference. Essentially, yes. If Caldwell had abilities, he might have chosen that location deliberately. And if someone else with abilities knows about the property's unique features, they might want to control it, which means the haunting could be real, another Chakra user trying to scare people away so they can have the place to themselves. Exactly. Velma's eyes sparkled with that special light that meant she'd solved part of the puzzle. We need to investigate during the day when we can actually see what we're doing. And Naruto, I want to run some tests. If you can detect Chakra in others, that gives us a huge advantage. They spent the afternoon in Velma's makeshift laboratory, actually just the science classroom at Coolsville High, where she had special permission to work. She hooked Naruto up to various sensors while he practiced his Chakra control, measuring his output, his focus, his responses. Your energy signature is unique, she mused, studying readouts. I've never seen anything like it in any of my research. But what's really interesting is the spikes when you talk about your friends or when you're focused on protecting something. Your emotional state directly correlates to your power output. Master Nakamura said something similar, that my bonds with others make my spirit stronger. Velma looked at him thoughtfully. Naruto, can I ask you something personal? Sure. When you first arrived here, you couldn't speak English and you had what psychologists would call severe trauma responses. But over the years, you've opened up, made friends, become part of our team. What changed? Naruto thought about it. You guys changed it. When everyone else saw a weird foreign kid who couldn't communicate, you saw someone worth helping. When I failed at training and couldn't do normal things, you didn't give up on me. Especially you, Velma. You spent hours teaching me English, helping me understand this world. You never made me feel stupid or like a burden. Velma's cheeks flushed slightly. You were never a burden. You were fascinating. You still are. A boy with unexplainable abilities from an unknown origin, who somehow combines incredible physical potential with complete tactical recklessness. You're like a living mystery to solve. Is that all I am to you? A mystery? The question came out before Naruto could stop it, and suddenly the air in the lab felt different. Charged somehow. Velma met his eyes, her expression serious. No, you're my friend, Naruto, one of my best friends. You're someone who never makes me feel weird for being too smart or too analytical. You actually listen when I explain things, even when they're complicated. You make me feel valued, not just for what I know, but for who I am." Naruto's heart hammered in his chest. Velma, the lab door burst open and Daphne rushed in, slightly out of breath but excited. "There you guys are. I've been looking everywhere. My parents told me something important about the Caldwell estate. We need to gather the gang. This changes everything." The moment broke, but something had shifted between Naruto and Velma. As they packed up the equipment and headed to meet the others, Naruto noticed that Velma stayed closer to him than usual, and when their hands accidentally brushed, neither of them pulled away. At the malt shop, Daphne shared her information with the assembled group. "My great-grandmother knew the Caldwell family," she explained. According to her, Jeremiah Caldwell was obsessed with what he called the old ways: martial arts, meditation, Eastern philosophy. He traveled extensively in Asia in the 1950s and came back different, stronger, faster, with abilities that people whispered about but never discussed openly. "Chakra abilities," Naruto said. Daphne nodded. "Possibly. But here's the important part. Caldwell didn't disappear randomly. He was searching for something he called the source. He believed that somewhere in Coolsville, there was a place where the barriers between worlds were thin, where energy flowed more freely. He thought he could use it to unlock greater power." Fred leaned forward. "Did he find it?" "No one knows. But the day he disappeared, he told his butler he was going to open the door. Those were his last words." Velma pulled out her notes. What if the Caldwell estate isn't just built on an energy convergence? What if Caldwell actually created one? What if he found a way to thin the barrier between worlds? And that's what happened to Naruto. Everyone turned to look at Naruto. "You think I came through some kind of portal at the Caldwell estate?" he asked. "Not at the estate. Remember, you appeared on Route 66 about 5 miles away. But what if Caldwell's experiment went wrong, created instability that opened random portals? You could have come through one of them." The implications hit Naruto like a physical blow. If Velma was right, the Caldwell estate might hold answers about where he came from, maybe even a way back to his original world. But did anyone go back? This was his home now. These were his people. "We have to investigate properly," Fred decided. "Full reconnaissance, detailed planning, and Naruto. If there's another Chakra user involved, we need you at full capacity. Can you be ready?" Naruto thought about his training, about the progress he'd made, about the moment in the basement when his Chakra had actually responded. "I'll be ready, whatever it takes." Daphne reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "We'll all be ready. We're in this together, right?" Her hand was warm, and the gesture sent that same confusing flutter through Naruto's chest that he'd felt with Velma earlier. When had his feelings gotten so complicated? They spent the next 3 days preparing. Fred designed a comprehensive investigation plan that accounted for supernatural elements. Velma created detection equipment specifically tuned to Chakra's signature. Daphne researched escape routes and compiled a detailed map of the estate's layout. Even Shag and Scooby helped, testing the Mystery Machine's upgrades and preparing emergency supplies. Naruto trained harder than ever. Master Nakamura put him through intensive conditioning, running drills through the forest at dawn, strength training with progressively heavier weights, flexibility exercises that left him sore, but more limber, and crucially, hours of chakra control practice. The breakthrough came on the 3rd day. Naruto was working with Velma in the lab, trying to sustain a small chakra flame, when Daphne stopped by with lunch for all of them. "You guys have been at this for 6 hours, she chided, setting down sandwiches and drinks. "You need to eat and rest." "Just one more attempt," Naruto insisted, focusing on his palm. He thought about his friends, about the warmth of their support, about... The flame appeared and held steady for 30 seconds. Clear, blue, and completely under his control. Both girls gasped. "You did it." Velma grabbed his shoulders, grinning with genuine delight. "Naruto, you actually maintained stable chakra manifestation." Daphne hugged him from the side, laughing. "That was amazing. Do it again." Sandwiched between them, feeling their excitement and pride as if it were his own, Naruto tried again. This time, the flame lasted 45 seconds before he had to release it, exhausted but triumphant. The emotional connection, Velma breathed, taking measurements. When you're focused on positive bonds, your control stabilizes exponentially. "Naruto, this is incredible. With practice, you could..." She was cut off as Daphne's phone rang. Fred's voice came through on speaker, urgent and excited. Gang, we've got a development. The Hexagon Enterprises hearing was moved up. It's happening tomorrow afternoon. If we're going to investigate the estate and gather evidence about what's really happening there, it has to be tonight. Everyone looked at each other. Tonight then, Naruto said, and his voice didn't waver. He was ready, with his friends beside him and his chakra finally responding. He could face whatever waited in that mansion, even if it meant confronting the truth about where he came from. Even if it meant discovering that the door between worlds was real. Even if it meant choosing between the past he couldn't remember and the future he was building. As the sun set over Coolsville and the gang made final preparations, Naruto stood with Velma and Daphne outside the community center, watching the sky turn orange and purple. "Are you scared?" Daphne asked quietly. "Yeah," Naruto admitted, "but not of the ghost or whoever's behind it. I'm scared of what I might find out. What if I learn where I'm from and it changes everything?" Velma adjusted her glasses, her analytical mind working. "Knowledge is never something to fear, Naruto. Whatever you discover, it doesn't change who you are now. You're not defined by your past. You're defined by your choices, your bonds, your growth. And no matter what you find out," Daphne added, linking her arm through his, "you're one of us. You're part of Mystery Incorporated. That doesn't change." Velma took his other arm, and the three of them stood there as darkness fell, a united front against whatever mysteries waited ahead. In that moment, Naruto realized something important. He'd spent years trying to control his chakra through force and discipline, failing because he was fighting against himself. But he'd succeeded the moment he'd stopped fighting and started connecting to his friends, to his purpose, to the person he was becoming. Maybe that was the real lesson. Power didn't come from isolation or domination. It came from bonds, from trust, from being part of something larger than yourself. As they walked to meet Fred and the others, Naruto felt his chakra humming beneath his skin, no longer a wild force to be wrestled, but a steady companion, growing stronger with every step. The mystery of the Caldwell estate awaited. The truth about his origins waited to be discovered. And whatever came next, Naruto Uzumaki wouldn't face it alone. The gang assembled at the estate gates as the moon rose, full and bright. This time they were prepared, equipment tested, plans reviewed, everyone knowing their role. "Remember," Fred said, his voice calm but authoritative, "we stick together unless absolutely necessary to split up. If anyone encounters the entity or the chakra user, signal immediately. Our priority is gathering evidence and getting out safely." They moved through the gates like a well-coordinated unit. Naruto could feel the difference from their first visit. They were ready now, confident despite the danger. The mansion loomed ahead, dark and silent, keeping its secrets. But not for long. As they approached the entrance, Naruto's chakra sense flickered to life, that new ability he was still learning to control. He felt it, energy, powerful and controlled, somewhere deep in the mansion. Someone was waiting for them. Someone who, like Naruto, carried the power of another world within them. The mystery was about to deepen, and Naruto, surrounded by his friends, felt more ready than ever to face it. The door swung open with a creak, and Mystery Incorporated stepped into the darkness, together. The interior of the Caldwell estate was even more unsettling on their second visit. The moonlight streaming through broken windows cast skeletal shadows across the dusty floors, and every creak of the old mansion seemed amplified in the oppressive silence. Naruto stayed close to the group, his newly awakened chakra sense tingling with a constant low-level awareness that something or someone was watching them. Fred took point with his flashlight and EMF detector, the device already registering unusual readings. "We're getting spikes consistent with Velma's energy convergence theory," he reported, keeping his voice low. "The readings increase the deeper into the mansion we go, which suggests the source is likely in the center of the building or below ground," Velma added, consulting her own equipment, a modified tablet displaying real-time electromagnetic mapping that she'd programmed specifically for this investigation. "Based on the architectural plans I found, Caldwell's personal study and laboratory were in the East Wing, ground floor. That's where he was last seen." Daphne had her lockpicking kit ready and a small can of what she'd labeled anti-trap spray, essentially WD-40 for disabling mechanical triggers, but she made it sound more professional. "I'll take point on any locked doors or suspicious mechanisms." After getting caught in 17 traps last month, she shot Naruto a teasing look. "I've become something of an expert on what to avoid." "Like, that's great and all," Shaggy whispered from the back of the group. clutching Scooby close. But can we talk about the exit strategy? You know, for when the scary ghost shows up again. The primary escape route is back the way we came, Fred said calmly. Secondary exits are marked here. He showed them a map with highlighted routes. Windows on the ground floor, side doors, and if absolutely necessary, the old servant passages that run through the walls. How did you find those? Naruto asked, impressed. Fred grinned. Daphne's great-grandmother didn't just know about Caldwell. She actually visited this mansion as a girl. She sketched the layout from memory. Daphne nodded. She said Caldwell was paranoid about being trapped, so he had escape routes built into every room. Ironic, considering he disappeared without using any of them. They moved deeper into the mansion, their formation tight and coordinated. Naruto found himself between Velma and Daphne again, hyper-aware of their presence in the darkness. Velma's scientific calm was reassuring, the way she analyzed everything with cool logic. Daphne's practical confidence, the way she moved like someone who'd faced danger before and conquered it, made him feel braver. The hallway opened into a grand foyer with a sweeping staircase. Portraits lined the walls, stern-faced ancestors of the Caldwell line, their painted eyes seeming to track the group's movement. At the top of the stairs hung the largest portrait, Jeremiah Caldwell himself. Naruto stopped, staring up at the painting. The man depicted was perhaps 50 years old, with sharp features, intense dark eyes, and something in his posture that spoke of controlled power. But what caught Naruto's attention was the painting's background. It showed Caldwell standing in what looked like a dojo, and behind him on the wall hung scrolls covered in characters that looked almost like. "That's Japanese," Velma said, following his gaze. She pulled out a small camera and zoomed in on the portrait, or at least a similar writing system. "Can you read it, Naruto?" Naruto squinted at the characters, accessing memories from before he'd arrived in this fragmentary, unclear, but still there. Some of it. That one means flow or stream, and that one is spirit or soul. The rest is too blurry in the painting. Chakra terminology, Velma murmured, making notes. He definitely knew about the energy system. The question is, how much did he understand, and what was he trying to accomplish? A sudden cold breeze swept through the foyer, extinguishing Fred's flashlight. Then Daphne's. Then all of them, one by one, until the only illumination came from the moonlight filtering through the grimy windows. "Okay, that's not a natural phenomenon," Velma stated, though her voice had a slight tremor. "Ruro," Scooby whimpered. The temperature plummeted. Naruto could see his breath misting in the air, and his chakra sense suddenly screamed danger. "Guys, something's..." The ghost materialized at the top of the stairs, exactly where Caldwell's portrait hung. 7 feet of translucent malevolence, glowing red eyes fixed on the group below. But this time, Naruto could feel the technique behind the illusion. Chakra, carefully woven to create the appearance of an apparition, combined with actual environmental manipulation to affect temperature and light. Someone was controlling this. Someone skilled. "Leave this place," the ghost intoned, its voice echoing with unnatural resonance. "The secrets here are not for you. Leave, or suffer the fate of Caldwell himself." Chains erupted from the walls, the same phantom chains from before, reaching for the group with predatory. "Scatter," Fred yelled, and Mystery Incorporated broke formation with practiced efficiency. Fred and Daphne went right, toward what looked like a sitting room. Shaggy and Scooby bolted left, screaming. Velma grabbed Naruto's hand and pulled him toward the east wing, toward Caldwell's study. "The entity keeps appearing between us and our objective," she said as they ran, her analytical mind working even in crisis. Classic misdirection. Whatever the truth is, it's in that study. Chains pursued them, crashing against walls and tearing through old furniture. Naruto could feel the chakra in them, the way the energy flowed and struck. It was controlled, precise. Whoever was doing this had far more skill than he did. They reached a heavy oak door. Locked, naturally. Velma was already pulling out her own lock-picking kit when Naruto had a different idea. "Stand back," he said, focusing on his palm. The chakra came easier now, responding to the urgency and his desire to protect Velma. Blue energy swirled around his hand, and he struck the lock mechanism with a chakra-enhanced blow. The lock shattered, and the door swung open. "That was amazing," Velma said, genuine awe in her voice. "You shaped the chakra into a focused impact point. That's advanced technique." "I just hit it really hard," Naruto admitted, but he felt a surge of pride at her praise. They stumbled into Caldwell's study and slammed the door behind them. The room was large, lined with bookshelves, dominated by a massive desk covered in papers and strange instruments. But what immediately drew their attention was the far wall. It wasn't a wall at all. It was a massive map, not of Coolsville, but of something else entirely. Landmasses Naruto had never seen, with names written in that same script from the portrait. And at the center of the map, connected by red lines to various points, was a single location marked with a symbol that made Naruto's breath catch. A spiral. The same spiral pattern that marked the Uzumaki clan symbol from the fragments of memory he still carried. "Velma," he whispered, pointing at the symbol. "I know that mark. It's mine. From before." Velma was already photographing everything. Her scientific excitement barely contained despite the danger. "This map shows another world, Naruto, or possibly another dimension." And Caldwell was tracking connections between that world and ours. "Look, these red lines correspond to locations in Coolsville. The estate, Route 66 where you appeared, the old quarry, the lighthouse, the museum. All places where we've encountered genuinely supernatural phenomena," Naruto realized. Not fake hauntings, but real unexplainable events. Exactly. Caldwell theorized that these locations are natural weak points between dimensions. And this, she pointed to notes scrawled in English beside the map. He called it the Convergence Project. He was trying to strengthen the connection to create a stable portal. A massive crash came from outside the study. The ghost was coming. Naruto moved to the desk, rifling through papers with growing urgency. Most were scientific notes he couldn't understand, formulas and calculations. But then he found it, a journal, leather-bound with recent entries. The handwriting was different from the older papers. This was new. He flipped to the last entry, dated just 3 days ago. "The Uzumaki boy has appeared, just as the old text predicted. His arrival confirms the convergence is strengthening. The power within him is remarkable, untrained, raw, but with potential that exceeds even Caldwell's theories. He must not discover the truth about the estate, about the portal, about what waits on the other side. The door must remain closed, even if it means driving him away by force. For everyone's sake, especially his own, he cannot open the gateway. The beast that sent him here is still waiting, still hunting. If the barrier falls completely." The entry ended there, unfinished. "Naruto, look at this." Velma had found something else, a photograph hidden under papers. It showed a young woman, perhaps in her 30s, with dark hair and kind eyes, standing next to Jeremiah Caldwell. But what caught their attention was what she wore around her neck, a necklace with the Uzumaki spiral symbol. "Who is she?" Naruto asked. "I don't know, but..." Velma turned the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, "Akane Uzumaki, 1990. The Last Guardian." The door to the study exploded inward, chains wrapping around it and tearing it from its hinges. The ghost floated through, but now Naruto could see through the technique completely. Behind the illusion of the spectral figure was a woman, real, solid, wearing modern clothes beneath a chakra-woven disguise. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, and her voice was no longer distorted and ghostly, but human. "Tired. I've been trying to protect you, protect everyone, but you just won't leave it alone." The illusion faded completely, revealing a woman in her mid-40s with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a tight bun, wearing practical dark clothes and fingerless gloves. Her eyes, Naruto noticed, were the same kind eyes from the photograph. "You're related to her," he said, pointing to the picture. "To Akane Uzumaki." The woman's expression softened slightly. "She was my mother. And yes, before you ask, that makes you and me distant relatives. The Uzumaki clan was once large, spread across our original world. When the clan was destroyed, her voice caught. Survivors scattered to different dimensions, seeking refuge. My mother came here, found Caldwell, helped him understand Chakra. And when the beast attacked your village and you were sent through the emergency portal, you ended up here because this is where the dimensional barriers are weakest." "The beast," Naruto said, his mind reeling. "You mean the Nine Tails? The QB? You remember," the woman said, surprised. "Fragments, fire, screaming, a giant fox made of hatred and chakra. It attacked my village, and then nothing until I woke up on Route 66 and..." Velma stepped forward, her scientist's mind already processing. "Who are you? What's really happening here?" The woman sighed. and the remaining chains dissipated, the chakra flowing back into her body. My name is Kasumi Uzumaki. I've been the guardian of this estate for 20 years, ever since Caldwell died. Yes, died, not disappeared. He attempted to close the portal permanently, but the energy feedback killed him. I've been maintaining the seals, keeping the gateway stable but closed, preventing anything from our world from crossing over. Why the haunting act? Naruto asked. Why scare people away instead of just explaining? Because Hexagon Enterprises isn't a normal development company. They're funded by people who know about Chakra, who want access to the portal, who would use it for their own gain. I can't let them take this property, can't risk them destabilizing the seals. But I also can't reveal the truth publicly without exposing the existence of other dimensions to a world that isn't ready for that knowledge. A commotion from elsewhere in the mansion. Shouts, the sounds of Fred's latest trap being deployed, Scooby's distinctive bark. Your friends, Kasumi said. I didn't hurt them, I swear. Just scared them to try to make you all leave. They won't leave without answers, Velma said firmly. We're investigators. Mystery solving is what we do. And now that we know the truth, we can help. Kasumi looked at them. This brilliant girl with her unwavering logic and the boy who carried the legacy of a destroyed clan. And something in her expression crumbled. You're so young, she whispered. Both of you. When I was your age, I was already training to be a guardian, learning to maintain seals and defend the barriers. I never got to be normal, to have friends my own age, to solve mysteries just for the sake of curiosity. My mother made sure I understood the weight of our responsibility. So teach me, Naruto said impulsively. You know about Chakra, about my clan, about actual techniques, instead of just the basic stuff Master Nakamura can show me. Help me understand what I am, and I'll help you protect the portal. Kasumi stared at him. You don't understand what you're offering. Training the Uzumaki way is harsh, demanding. It took me 10 years to master the basics, another 5 to learn sealing techniques, and I'm still nowhere near what my mother could do. Then I'll train for 10 years. 15, however long it takes. Naruto's voice was steady, certain. I'm not going anywhere. This world is my home now. These people, he gestured to indicate his friends throughout the mansion. They're my family. If there's a threat to them from the other side of that portal, I need to be strong enough to protect them. Velma touched his arm gently. Naruto, that's a huge commitment. I know. But Velma, for the first time since I got here, someone can actually explain what I am. Can teach me properly instead of me just fumbling around hoping something works. This is what I've been searching for. Before Velma could respond, Fred burst into the study, his ascot askew and his hair slightly mussed, the most disheveled Naruto had ever seen him. Daphne was right behind him, followed by a trembling Shaggy and Scooby. We heard voices, Fred said, immediately assessing the situation. And I see our ghost is considerably less ghostly than advertised. Kasumi raised her hands in a non-threatening gesture. I can explain. And she did. Over the next hour, sitting in Caldwell's study, surrounded by the evidence of dimensional research, Kasumi explained everything. The Uzumaki clan's destruction in the other world, the portal network, the Nine Tails attack that had sent Naruto through as a 6-year-old, Caldwell's death while trying to protect both worlds, and her lonely vigil maintaining the seals. The gang listened with varying expressions, Fred's tactical mind already planning, Velma's scientific curiosity burning bright, Daphne's empathetic nature responding to Kasumi's isolation, and Shaggy and Scooby's fear gradually transforming into understanding. So, you're not trying to hurt anyone? Shaggy asked. You're actually the good guy. I'm trying to keep 2 worlds safe, Kasumi corrected, which sometimes means scaring away people who would put everyone in danger. Hexagon Enterprises, Fred said. We need to know more about them. If they're actively trying to acquire this property for dimensional access, they're a threat that needs to be addressed. Already on it, Velma said, typing rapidly on her tablet. I'm cross-referencing their corporate structure, funding sources, and… Oh no. Everyone leaned in to look at her screen. Hexagon Enterprises is a shell company, Velma explained, her voice tight. It's owned by a larger corporation called Dimensional Research International, which is funded by… This is going to sound crazy, but according to these leaked documents I'm finding, they've been investigating paranormal and supernatural phenomena for decades. UFO, sightings, cryptid encounters, and specifically, reports of individuals with unexplained abilities. They're hunting people with chakra, Naruto realized, looking for proof that powers like mine exist. and if they get access to a portal that leads to a world where chakra is common. Daphne trailed off. The implication's clear. They'll exploit it, Kasumi finished. Take people from that world, study them, weaponize their abilities. That's why the portal must stay closed and protected. Fred stood, his leadership instincts taking over. Then we have a new mission. We stop Hexagon Enterprises from acquiring this property. We help Kasumi maintain the seals, and we keep the existence of the portal secret from those who would abuse it. Wow, Daphne asked practically. The hearing is tomorrow. Without a legitimate reason to block the sale, the court will approve it. We give them a legitimate reason, Velma said, a mischievous glint in her eye. The Caldwell estate is a historical site with significant architectural and cultural value. If we can get it designated as a protected landmark, it becomes much harder to develop. And if we can expose Hexagon's real motivations, even without revealing the supernatural elements, we can discredit their claim. I can help with the historical angle, Daphne offered. My family has connections with the Coolsville Historical Society. If I can convince them to push for landmark status, and I can dig deeper into Hexagon's finances, Velma added. Corporate espionage, bribery, fraud. If they're operating in the shadows, they've likely broken laws we can expose. Like, what about the actual scary ghost stuff? Shaggy asked. Are we just pretending that didn't happen? Kasumi smiled slightly, the first genuine smile she'd shown. The scary ghost stuff can continue if it helps keep casual trespassers away. I've been maintaining this act for years. The local ghost story keeps most people out naturally. Naruto looked at this woman, his distant relative, someone who understood what he was in a way no one else could, and made a decision. After we deal with Hexagon, will you really train me? Teach me about the Uzumaki clan, about proper chakra control and sealing techniques. Kasumi studied him seriously. If you're truly committed, yes. But understand, Naruto, once you begin this path, there's no going back to a normal life. Guardianship is a responsibility that will shape everything you do going forward. I think that ship sailed when I fell through a dimensional portal as a kid, Naruto said wryly. Normal was never really an option for me. Then we have an accord. Help me protect the estate from Hexagon, and I'll teach you what it means to be an Uzumaki. They shook hands, and Naruto felt something settle into place, a piece of his identity clicking home. The gang spent the rest of the night documenting everything in the study that could support their case, carefully photographing maps, notes, and historical documents while avoiding anything too explicitly supernatural. Kasumi proved to be surprisingly helpful, guiding them to materials that showed Caldwell's legitimate historical and cultural research, the architectural uniqueness of the estate, and its value as a time capsule of late 19th century craftsmanship. As dawn approached, and they prepared to leave, Naruto found himself alone with Velma in the study while the others loaded equipment into the mystery machine. You're really going to do this? Velma said quietly, not a question, but an observation. Commit to years of training with Kasumi. I have to, Velma. This is the first real answer I've had about who I am, where I came from. Master Nakamura has been great, but he doesn't really understand chakra the way Kasumi does. She can teach me things I need to know. Velma adjusted her glasses. A gesture Naruto had learned meant she was processing complex emotions. I understand the appeal of answers. As a scientist, I'm driven by the same need to understand. But Naruto, are you sure this is what you want? Or is it what you think you should want because it's expected of you? He blinked, surprised by the question. What do you mean? You have this legacy, the Uzumaki clan, chakra abilities, a connection to another world. That's significant, and I can see why you'd want to explore it. But you also have a life here, friends, a home. Your work with Mystery Incorporated training with Kasumi will be time-consuming and demanding. Are you prepared for how that might change things? Naruto thought about it, really thought about it. I don't want things to change between us, between me and the gang. You guys are the most important people in my life. But Velma, I also can't ignore what I am. The power inside me is growing whether I control it or not. The incident at the mansion, when I actually used chakra effectively, that only happened because I was protecting you. But what if next time I need to use it and I can't? What if someone gets hurt because I wasn't properly trained? Velma's expression softened. You're thinking about protection again. That's very you. Always concerned about keeping others safe, even when you're the one in danger. Is that bad? No. It's one of the things she paused, cheeks coloring slightly. One of the things I admire about you. Your instinct is always to help others, even at cost to yourself. But Naruto, You deserve to be protected too. You deserve to have people looking out for you, not just you looking out for everyone else." Before Naruto could respond, Daphne appeared in the doorway. "Hey, you two. We're loaded up and ready to go. Kasumi's gonna lock up the estate and meet us tomorrow at the hearing." As they walked to the mystery machine, Naruto found himself between Velma and Daphne again. His usual position, he was realizing, and not by accident. Both girls seemed comfortable with his presence, sought it out even, and he was increasingly aware of how different they were, how they both mattered to him in ways he didn't fully understand yet. Velma, with her brilliant mind and unwavering logic, who saw mysteries everywhere and taught him to think rather than just react, who spent countless hours helping him train, documenting his progress, pushing him to understand the science behind his abilities. Daphne, with her practical skills and genuine warmth, who had been the first to welcome him to the group despite his language barriers, who never made him feel inadequate even when he failed, who balanced grace with toughness, who could pick a lock one moment and offer a comforting word the next. He cared about both of them a lot, and he was starting to suspect they might care about him too, in ways that went beyond friendship. But that was a different kind of mystery, one he had no idea how to solve. Back at the community center, Master Nakamura was waiting despite the early hour. Naruto told him everything about Kasumi, the portal, the Uzumaki clan, the training offer. The old master listened carefully, sipping his morning tea, his expression unreadable. "You have found your teacher," he said finally. "Someone who can guide you in ways I cannot. This is good, Naruto-kun. But you'll still train me too, right? The physical conditioning, the meditation, all of that. Of course, Kasumi-san can teach you chakra techniques, but discipline and spirit must still be cultivated through traditional practice. We will coordinate. I will make you strong in body and mind, and she will teach you the Uzumaki arts. Together, we will help you become what you are meant to be." "And what's that?" Master Nakamura smiled enigmatically. "That, Naruto-kun, is for you to discover." The hearing the next day was held in Colesville's town hall, a stately building with marble columns and a sense of civic importance. Mystery Incorporated arrived early, armed with documentation, historical evidence, and Daphne's family connections. Hexagon Enterprises was represented by a team of lawyers in expensive suits, led by a smooth-talking man named Richard Hexley, who had the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He presented their case with professional efficiency. The estate was abandoned, deteriorating, a blight on the neighborhood that could be transformed into valuable commercial space. Then it was their turn. Daphne spoke first, presenting evidence of the estate's historical significance, its unique architecture, Caldwell's contributions to the community, the cultural value of preservation. She had members of the Historical Society present, including her great-grandmother via video call, all advocating for landmark status. Velma followed with a devastating presentation on Hexagon's corporate structure, their connections to Dimensional Research International, and carefully worded questions about their true intentions. She stopped short of mentioning the supernatural, but she raised enough red flags about corporate ethics and potential fraud that the town council members began looking uncomfortable. Fred presented safety concerns, the estate's structural integrity, environmental assessments that needed to be conducted, the need for proper archaeological survey before any development. Through it all, Hexley maintained his composure, countering each argument with legal precedents and procedural objections. Then Kasumi took the stand. "I am Kasumi Uzumaki," she said clearly, "legal heir to the Caldwell estate through my mother, Akane Uzumaki, who was Jeremiah Caldwell's designated successor. I have documentation proving my claim, which was never properly processed due to administrative errors 30 years ago. As the rightful owner, I am formally withdrawing the property from sale and designating it as a private historical preserve." She presented documents, deeds, wills, legal paperwork that Velma had helped her locate and verify through public records. The paperwork was old but legitimate, and the town council's legal advisor confirmed its validity. Hexley's composure finally cracked. "This is a transparent stalling tactic. Those documents are decades old and were never processed because your company bribed courthouse officials to bury them." Velma interjected, standing. "I have evidence of financial transfers from Dimensional Research International to specific clerks in the county records office. The dates correspond exactly to when Ms. Uzumaki's original claim should have been reviewed." The room erupted. Hexley tried to recover, but the damage was done. The council called for a recess while they reviewed the new evidence and verified Velma's claims. 2 hours later, the decision came down. The sale was blocked pending investigation into the corporate bribery allegations. Kasumi's ownership claim will be processed properly this time, and the Caldwell estate was granted preliminary landmark status until a full historical assessment could be conducted. Hexagon Enterprises had lost. Outside the town hall, the gang celebrated with their usual subdued professionalism. Fred shaking hands, Daphne hugging Kasumi, Velma already making notes for the follow-up investigation they'd need to conduct, Shaggy and Scooby raiding the refreshment table. Naruto stood slightly apart, watching them. These people, this found family of his, had just helped protect a dimensional portal from corporate exploitation without even fully understanding what they were safeguarding. They trusted him, trusted Kasumi, and worked together to achieve something remarkable. "You have good friends," Kasumi said, appearing beside him. "Loyal, intelligent, brave despite their fears. Your mother would have approved." Naruto's head snapped toward her. "You knew my mother?" "No, she was gone before I was born. The Uzumaki clan was already scattered and dying by then. But my mother told me stories. She said the clan's strength came from their bonds, their absolute loyalty to those they considered precious. You have that same trait, Naruto. It's in how you fight to protect your friends, how you channel chakra through your connections to others." Kasumi-sensei. The title felt right, formal but respectful. "When we start training, can you teach me about my clan? Not just the techniques, but the history, the people, what we stood for. I'll teach you everything I know, starting tomorrow, if you're ready." Training begins at dawn. Traditional Uzumaki schedule. We'll start with basic sealing theory, chakra control refinement, and physical conditioning specifically designed for our clan's techniques. Dawn, right? I can do dawn. Kasumi smiled slightly. "We'll see. The first week usually breaks most students. But somehow, I think you'll be fine." She walked away to speak with Master Nakamura, leaving Naruto alone with his thoughts. "Hey," Velma approached, tablet tucked under her arm. "That was intense. You okay?" "Yeah, better than okay, actually. For the first time since I got here, I feel like I'm moving forward instead of just surviving." "That's good. I'm glad you found Kasumi. She's prickly, but she clearly cares about you in her own way." "Velma, about what you said yesterday, about making sure I'm doing this for the right reason. You don't have to explain. I see in your eyes. Naruto, this is what you need. I just wanted to make sure you knew you had choices, that you weren't being driven solely by obligation." Daphne joined them, slightly out of breath from her conversation with various historical society members. "We did it. The estate is safe, Kasumi keeps her home, and Hexagon is probably going to face serious legal consequences. This is a win all around. Couldn't have done it without you," Naruto said sincerely. "Your family connections made the difference." Daphne's smile was radiant. "That's what teams do. Everyone contributes their strengths." "Speaking of which, Kasumi mentioned you're starting training tomorrow at dawn." "That's brutal, Naruto. Are you sure you're ready for that kind of commitment?" "I have to be. But it's not like I'm leaving Mystery Incorporated or anything. I'll still solve mysteries with you guys, still train with Master Nakamura, still be around. Just more skilled and probably more exhausted," Velma noted practically. "Make sure you're eating enough and getting adequate sleep." The kind of training Kasumi described requires significant caloric intake and proper rest for muscle recovery and neural pathway development. "I'll make sure he takes care of himself," Daphne said, and there was something in her tone that made Naruto glance at her curiously. She met his eyes with an expression he couldn't quite read. "We both will." Velma nodded agreement. "Absolutely. Someone needs to make sure you don't overtrain and hurt yourself in some misguided attempt to master everything in a month." "I wouldn't." Naruto started to protest, then remembered the 17 traps he'd triggered last month through sheer impatience. "Okay, fair point." The three of them stood there in comfortable silence, watching as Fred organized the group for departure, as Shaggy and Scooby finished demolishing the refreshment table, as Kasumi and Master Nakamura spoke in low, serious tones about training regimens and coordination. Naruto realized that this moment, this feeling of belonging, of purpose, of being surrounded by people who genuinely cared about him, was what he'd been missing since arriving, and not just answers about his past, but connection in his present. "Thank you," he said quietly, addressing both girls. "For everything. For helping me learn English when I first got here, for including me in the gang, for all the training sessions and mystery hunts, and just being my friends. I know I'm not the easiest person to deal with." "You're worth dealing with," Velma said simply, adjusting her glasses in that way that meant she was being emotional but trying to hide it. "Besides," Daphne added with a teasing smile, "life was boring before you showed up and started accidentally triggering traps everywhere. You keep things interesting, Naruto Uzumaki." The drive back was filled with the usual post-mystery celebration. Shaggy and Scooby recounting their terror in increasingly exaggerated terms. Fred analyzing what went right and wrong with their investigation. Daphne calling family members to share the good news. Velma typing up notes for her case file. Naruto sat in his usual spot between Velma and Daphne and let the familiar comfort of their friendship wash over him. Tomorrow, his real training would begin. The path to understanding his heritage, mastering his abilities, becoming strong enough to protect the people and world he cared about. But tonight, he was just Naruto, member of Mystery Incorporated, surrounded by friends, having helped solve another mystery in the strange, wonderful town of Coolsville. As the mystery machine rolled through the darkening streets toward home, Naruto closed his eyes and felt his chakra humming contentedly beneath his skin. No longer a wild force to be feared, but a part of him he was finally learning to understand. The journey was just beginning, and he couldn't wait to see where it led. Dawn came too early. Naruto dragged himself out of bed at 5 in the morning, his body protesting every movement. He'd barely slept, too excited and nervous about beginning real training with Kasumi. Master Nakamura had warned him the night before that Uzumaki clan training was notoriously harsh, designed to push students beyond their perceived limits. The Uzumaki were known for their vitality and endurance, the old master had explained. Their training methods reflected this, brutal by normal standards, but necessary to forge warriors who could survive any battlefield. Now, stumbling through the pre-dawn darkness toward the Caldwell estate, Naruto wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Kasumi was waiting at the gates, looking far too alert for this ungodly hour. She wore practical training clothes, black pants, a dark sleeveless shirt that showed surprisingly toned arms, and her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight braid. In the dim light, she looked younger, and Naruto could see the family resemblance more clearly. The same sharp eyes, the same determined set to her jaw that he saw in his own reflection. "You're 3 minutes late," she said without preamble. "I what? I thought you said dawn." "Dawn began 7 minutes ago. In Uzumaki training, dawn means the first light touches the horizon, not when it's convenient for you to arrive. 3 minutes may not seem significant, but in combat, 3 minutes can mean the difference between life and death." Naruto opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right, even if it was annoying. "Sorry, sensei. It won't happen again." Kasumi's expression softened slightly. "Good. The fact that you accept correction without argument shows you're serious. Many students will make excuses. Now, before we begin any technique training, we need to assess your current capabilities properly. Master Nakamura has given me his evaluation, but I need to see for myself. Follow me." She led him through the estate grounds to an area behind the mansion that Naruto hadn't seen during their investigation. It was a large, flat clearing that had been recently maintained, the grass cut short, the ground level and firm. Training equipment was set up around the perimeter, wooden posts at various heights, rope obstacles, weights, and what looked like a small obstacle course. "This was my mother's training ground," Kasumi explained. "She maintained it until she died 10 years ago. I've kept it functional since then, though I rarely use it anymore. Now, show me what you can do. Start with basic conditioning, run the perimeter of the clearing. I'll tell you when to stop." Naruto started running, settling into the steady pace Master Nakamura had taught him. The clearing was larger than it looked, each lap probably a quarter mile. He focused on his breathing, on the rhythm of his feet against the ground, letting his mind clear as his body worked. Kasumi watched silently, her arms crossed, her expression analytical. After 10 laps, Naruto's breathing was labored but steady. After 20, sweat soaked his shirt. After 30, his legs burned and his lungs felt like fire. But he kept going because Kasumi hadn't told him to stop. At 40 laps, she finally raised her hand. "Enough. Rest for 2 minutes, then show me your push-ups. Maximum reps, proper form." The 2-minute rest felt like 10 seconds. Naruto dropped into position and started. His arms trembled by rep 50, but he pushed through, drawing on the reserves of stamina he'd built over years of training. He made it to 120 before his form broke, and Kasumi called a halt. Sit-ups. Same protocol. 150. Squats. 200. Chakra control. Create and maintain a flame in your palm. This was where Naruto struggled. He managed to produce a small blue flame, but it flickered and died after only 15 seconds despite his best efforts. Kasumi made notes in a small journal, her expression neutral. Again, 20 seconds this time. Again, 12 seconds. Naruto cursed, frustrated. Again, 8 seconds. His control was getting worse, not better. Stop. Kasumi walked over, studying him carefully. What are you feeling right now? Frustrated. Angry at myself for not being able to do something that should be simple. And that's why you're failing. You're already exhausted from the physical conditioning, which means your chakra is depleted and unstable. Instead of working with what you have left, you're trying to force it, which creates internal resistance. Seat, cross-legged, hands on your knees. Naruto obeyed, grateful for the chance to stop moving. Kasumi sat across from him, mirroring his position. Close your eyes. Feel your chakra, not as something to control, but as a part of your physical state. Where is it concentrated right now? Naruto focused inward, using the meditation techniques Master Nakamura had taught him combined with the awareness Velma's training had developed. My core mostly. My legs feel empty, like the energy's been drained. Correct. Physical exertion consumes chakra, even when you're not actively using techniques. Your legs are depleted because you just ran 10 miles. Your arms are low because of the bodyweight exercises. What remains is concentrated in your core, your center of mass, where the body naturally protects its reserves. So I can't use techniques when I'm tired? Not exactly. You can't use techniques the same way when you're tired. Watch. Kasumi held out her hand, and a small flame appeared. Not blue like Naruto's, but a deeper, reddish color. This is a fire technique performed with full chakra reserves. Now watch. She ran in place for 30 seconds, performing an intense burst of movement that would have exhausted a normal person. When she held out her hand again, the flame that appeared was smaller, more orange than red, and it flickered slightly. Same technique, depleted state. The chakra is weaker because I have less to draw from, and the control is harder because my body is demanding energy for recovery. But it still works because I'm not fighting against my own exhaustion. I'm accepting it and working within those limitations. She let the flame die. Your mistake is trying to perform techniques at full power when you're depleted. The Uzumaki clan specialty was endurance. We could fight longer than anyone else, maintain chakra usage over extended periods. But we did it by being efficient, by scaling our techniques to our current state, not by burning through our reserves trying to prove something. Naruto absorbed this, his analytical mind, trained by Velma's scientific approach, processing the information. So I need to learn to gauge my chakra levels and adjust my technique strength accordingly. Exactly. Now try again. Don't aim for your maximum flame. Aim for what you can sustain right now, in this moment, with the reserves you actually have. Naruto held out his hand and focused, but this time he didn't reach for power. He reached for control, for the small, steady flame he could actually maintain. It appeared tiny, barely the size of a candle flame, but it held steady for 45 seconds before he had to release it. Better, Kasumi said, approval in her voice. Much better. That's the foundation of Uzumaki chakra control. Sustainability over spectacle. Now, let's talk about what her training will actually entail. She pulled out a scroll, unrolling it to reveal a complex schedule written in both English and Japanese characters. Uzumaki training is divided into 4 pillars: physical conditioning, chakra control, sealing arts, and combat application. We'll work on all 4 simultaneously, though your progress in each will vary based on your natural aptitude. Physical conditioning, you've already started with Master Nakamura, but I'll be adding Uzumaki-specific exercises designed to build the kind of endurance our clan was famous for. Longer runs, higher rep counts, exercises that force you to maintain chakra circulation while physically exhausted. Chakra control will focus on efficiency and sustainability. You have enormous reserves. I can sense that just from being near you, but raw power without control is useless. We'll work on maintaining techniques for extended periods, on scaling power output, on sensing and manipulating chakra flow. Sealing arts are the Uzumaki clan's signature skill. We were the best seal masters in our world, capable of binding demons, creating barrier techniques, and storing massive amounts of chakra in written formulas. This will be the hardest pillar for you because it requires intense concentration, precise chakra control, and knowledge of complex theoretical frameworks. Combat application brings it all together, using your conditioning, control, and techniques in actual fighting scenario. This will mostly be sparring with me, but eventually will incorporate your mystery-solving work as practical field training. Naruto's head spun with information. How long will it take to master all of this? Master? A lifetime. Become competent? 5 to 7 years of dedicated daily training. Reach a level where you can reliably use Uzumaki techniques in combat. 2 to 3 years if you're diligent and talented. 2 to 3 years. It seemed like forever and no time at all simultaneously. I can do that, Naruto said firmly. Whatever it takes. We'll see. For now, your daily schedule will look like this. Dawn arrival, physical conditioning for 2 hours. Then chakra control exercises for an hour. Then sealing theory study for an hour. Mostly reading and meditation until you have the basics down. That's 4 hours every morning before school. School. Naruto hadn't thought about that. He'd been homeschooled by Master Nakamura for the past few years, working through correspondence courses at his own pace. You're 13. You should be in school, interacting with peers your age, maintaining a normal life. I spoke with Master Nakamura. He agrees that you should enroll at Coolsville Junior High for the spring semester. It starts in 3 weeks, but no arguments. Part of being Uzumaki is balance. We were warriors, yes, but also diplomats, seal masters, scholars. We valued education and social connection as much as combat prowess. You'll attend school, maintain your friendships, continue your mystery work with that gang of yours. The training happens around your life, not instead of it. Naruto thought about seeing Velma, Daphne, and the others every day at school instead of just for investigations and weekend hangout. The idea was simultaneously exciting and terrifying. Okay, he agreed. I'll do it. Good. After school, you'll have 3 hours of free time. Homework, socializing, whatever you need. Then from 7 to 9 p.m., you'll train with Master Nakamura on traditional martial arts and meditation. On weekends, we'll have longer sessions where I can teach combat applications and more advanced techniques. Clear. Crystal. Then let's continue. I want to assess your chakra control more thoroughly. We're going to work on a basic exercise called the leaf concentration technique. She produced several leaves from a pouch at her belt and handed one to Naruto. Place this on your forehead and keep it there using only chakra. No advance, no suetación, pure chakra control. The goal is to apply exactly enough energy to make it stick without using so much that it burns or crumbles. Naruto pressed the leaf to his forehead and focused. It immediately fell off. Too little chakra. Try again. He added more energy. The leaf stuck for a second, then crumbled into ash. Too much. Find a middle ground. For the next hour, Naruto went through dozens of leaves, slowly learning to calibrate his chakra output. It was frustrating, meticulous work that required constant micro-adjustments. His head ached from the concentration, and his chakra felt ragged and unstable. But gradually he improved. By the end of the hour, he could keep a leaf attached for almost 30 seconds. Acceptable for a first session, Kasumi said. Tomorrow you'll aim for 1 minute. Eventually, you'll be able to maintain this indefinitely, even while moving or fighting. It seems trivial, but precise chakra control is the foundation of everything else. If you can't regulate your output on something as simple as a leaf, you'll never manage complex sealing formulas. The rest of the morning was spent on sealing theory, specifically learning to read and write the basic characters used in sealing jutsu. Kasumi had primers written in both English and Japanese, teaching the symbolic language that her mother had preserved. Seals are essentially written chakra formulas, she explained as Naruto painstakingly copied characters. Each symbol represents a specific concept or energy pattern. When combined properly and infused with chakra, they create effects that would be impossible with technique alone. The Uzumaki clan developed thousands of seals over generations, from simple storage scrolls to barrier techniques that could protect entire villages. Can you teach me a real seal? Even a simple one? Not yet. First, you need to learn the alphabet, so to speak. Trying to create a seal without understanding the fundamental characters would be like trying to write a novel without knowing letters. It'd be nonsense at best, dangerous at worst. Sealing failures can cause explosions, chakra backlash, or worse. Naruto nodded, accepting the wisdom even though impatience gnawed at him. He wanted immediate results, wanted to show progress, wanted to be strong now. But Kasumi's methodical approach made sense. especially after Velma's countless lectures about building proper foundations before attempting advanced applications. By 9 a.m., Naruto was exhausted, sweaty, and covered in leaf fragments. But he also felt accomplished in a way he rarely experienced. This wasn't just random training hoping for results. This was structured, progressive, with clear goals and expert guidance. "You did well for a first day," Kasumi said as they cleaned up the training area. "Better than I expected, honestly. You have your mother's determination. She will be proud." The casual mention of his mother hit Naruto like a punch. "You said you never knew her. How do you know she'd be proud?" Kasumi paused, her expression becoming distant. "I know what the Uzumaki valued. Loyalty, perseverance, protection of precious people. From what Master Nakamura has told me, from what I observed during the estate investigation, you embody those traits. Any Uzumaki mother would be proud of a son who fights to protect his friends, who doesn't give up despite overwhelming odds, who seeks strength not for glory but to keep others safe." She met his eyes. "That's who we were, Naruto. That's the legacy you carry. Not just techniques or abilities, but a philosophy that the strong exist to protect the weak, that bonds are more precious than power, that loyalty is the highest virtue." Naruto felt something warm spread through his chest, some piece of identity settling into place. "Thank you, Sensei, for teaching me this, for helping me understand. Thank me when you've survived a month of training. Now go, get cleaned up, eat something substantial, and rest. Tomorrow we start building your endurance properly." The walk back to the community center was long enough for Naruto's muscles to start seriously protesting. By the time he stumbled through the door, every part of his body ached. Master Nakamura took one look at him and chuckled. "So Kasumi-san did not go easy on you. She tried to kill me with push-ups and leaves." Naruto groaned, collapsing onto a mat. "Good. The Uzumaki way is harsh but effective. You will grow stronger quickly, though the next few weeks will be painful. Come, I have prepared a medicinal bath that will help with muscle recovery. Then you will eat, and then you will sleep. Your body needs time to adapt." The medicinal bath was exactly as horrible as it sounded, hot enough to be painful, filled with herbs that stung against his skin, and Master Nakamura insisted he stay submerged for 20 minutes. But afterward, Naruto had to admit his muscles felt better, the deep ache fading to manageable soreness. He ate an enormous breakfast: eggs, rice, fish, vegetables, and some kind of protein shake Master Nakamura had prepared, and then fell into bed, unconscious before his head fully hit the pillow. He woke 6 hours later to his phone buzzing insistently. Multiple messages from the Mystery Incorporated group chat. "Velma, Naruto, are you alive? You missed our research session at the library. Daphne, he's probably sleeping. Kasumi mentioned the first day would be brutal. Fred, new mystery might be developing. Strange lights reported at the old quarry. Should we investigate tonight? Shaggy, can it wait until Naruto's not dead from training? Scooby, Ria, Naruto?" Naruto typed a quick response. "Alive, barely. Sorry I missed the library. Up for quarry investigation if it's not too late." Velma's reply came immediately. "It's 3 p.m. Meet at the malt shop at 6? We can discuss the quarry situation and you can tell us about training. Daphne, and make sure you've eaten. You'll need energy for tonight." Naruto smiled at his phone, warmth spreading through him despite his exhaustion. This was what Kasumi meant about balance. The training was important, but so were these connections, these friendships that gave him strength. He spent the afternoon doing homework and light stretching, trying to keep his muscles from completely seizing up. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, he felt almost human again. The malt shop was busy with the after-school crowd, but the gang had secured their usual corner booth. Naruto slid in next to Velma, who immediately pushed a chocolate milkshake toward him. "Protein and calories," she said. "You'll need both if you're training at Kasumi's intensity level. I did some research on traditional martial arts conditioning programs, and the caloric requirements are significant. She made me run 10 miles and do hundreds of reps of everything," Naruto said, gratefully accepting the milkshake. "Then try to teach me chakra control with leaves that kept either falling off or burning up." Daphne winced sympathetically. "That sounds exhausting. Did you make any progress?" "Actually, yeah. By the end, I could keep the leaf attached for almost 30 seconds. And I learned about chakra efficiency, scaling techniques to match my current energy levels instead of always going maximum power." Fred leaned forward with interest. "That's tactically sound. In trap design, efficiency is often more important than raw force. A well-placed, simple trap works better than an overcomplicated, powerful one. Exactly what Kasumi said. The Uzumaki were known for endurance, not necessarily overwhelming power. They could outlast anyone because they used their chakra efficiently. Velma was already taking notes. That matches the theoretical frameworks I've been developing. Sustained output over time requires exponentially more control than burst techniques. If you can master that principle, your overall combat effectiveness could increase dramatically even without learning new techniques. Speaking of learning new things, Daphne interjected, "Kasumi told Master Nakamura you're enrolling at Coolsville Junior High. That's huge, Naruto! You'll be in actual classes with kids our age." The excitement in her voice was contagious, though Naruto felt nervous butterflies in his stomach. "Yeah, starting in 3 weeks when the spring semester begins. I've never been to real school before. What if I'm terrible at it?" "You won't be terrible," Velma assured him. "You've been keeping up with correspondence courses just fine, and your English has improved remarkably since you arrived. Besides, we'll all be there. I can help with academics. Daphne can navigate the social aspects, and Fred can provide unnecessary leadership during group projects." Fred finished with a self-aware grin. "I was going to say ensure Naruto doesn't accidentally trigger any literal or metaphorical traps in the school environment," Velma said dryly. Everyone laughed, and Naruto felt some of his anxiety ease. With his friends there, maybe school wouldn't be so intimidating. "So what's this about the quarry?" he asked, steering the conversation to safer ground. Fred pulled out his investigation notebook. "Local reports of strange lights and sounds coming from the old Coolsville quarry over the past 3 nights. The quarry's been abandoned for 15 years since the mining operation shut down, so there shouldn't be any activity. Could be trespassers, could be something more interesting." "Define interesting," Shaggy said nervously. "Well, according to my research," Velma began, pulling up information on her tablet. "The quarry has a history of unusual phenomena dating back decades. Unexplained equipment malfunctions, workers reporting strange visions, several accidents that were never fully explained. It was one of the locations on Caldwell's map, a potential weak point between dimensions." Naruto straightened. "You think there might be another chakra user there? Or something coming through from the other side?" "It's possible. The dimensional barriers are most unstable at locations with specific geological features. Underground water, certain mineral compositions, natural energy convergences. The quarry has all of those. If someone knows what they're looking for and has the ability to manipulate chakra, they could be trying to open another portal." Naruto finished grimly. Daphne looked between them. "Okay, so this went from probably just trespassers to potential dimensional crisis really fast. Are we equipped to handle that?" "We have Naruto," Fred pointed out. "If there is a chakra user involved, he can sense them now. And if it's just regular criminals doing something shady, we handle it like any other mystery. Either way, we investigate carefully and call for backup if needed." "Backup being Kasumi?" Naruto asked. "If necessary. I have her number now, and she said to contact her if we encountered anything supernatural that seemed dangerous." They spent the next hour planning their approach, surveillance first, evidence gathering second, confrontation only if absolutely necessary. Fred sketched out routes through the quarry based on old mining maps. Velma prepared her detection equipment. Daphne identified potential hiding spots and escape routes. Naruto mostly listened, absorbing their professional approach to mystery solving. This was what made Mystery Incorporated special. They were teenagers, but they approached investigations with the thoroughness of professional detectives. Every case was carefully planned, every risk assessed, every team member's strengths utilized. As the sun set and they piled into the mystery machine, Naruto found himself wedged between Velma and Daphne in the back again. It was becoming his default position, and he was increasingly aware of how comfortable it felt, how right. Velma was reviewing data on her tablet, occasionally murmuring observations about electromagnetic patterns and geological surveys. Her shoulder pressed against Naruto's as she leaned to show him something, and he caught the faint scent of her shampoo, something citrusy and clean. Daphne was checking her gear, flashlight, lockpicks, the small first aid kit she always carried since Naruto had sprained his ankle during the lighthouse investigation. She caught him watching and smiled, that warm expression that made his heart do complicated things. "Nervous?" she asked quietly. "A little. If there is a chakra user there, I've only been training with Kasumi for 1 day. I'm not exactly ready for combat." "You don't have to be ready for combat. You just have to be ready to sense them and warn us. That's valuable enough. She squeezed his arm reassuringly. Besides, you're tougher than you think. You survived this morning's training, didn't you? Barely. Velma looked up from her tablet. Actually, surviving that level of physical conditioning on day one is statistically impressive. Most people would have given up or physically couldn't complete the regimen. Your recovery speed is also notable. 6 hours of sleep and you're functional enough for field work. That suggests your Uzumaki heritage gives you enhanced healing and stamina beyond what we previously measured. Is that good? It's excellent. It means the training will be effective faster than normal human adaptation rates. Your body can handle more stress and recover more quickly, creating a positive feedback loop of improvement. Daphne laughed softly. Only Velma could make "you're really tough" sound like a scientific paper. I prefer precision to vague compliments, Velma said, but she was smiling. The quarry loomed ahead, a massive gouge in the earth surrounded by chain-link fencing and warning signs. Fred parked the mystery machine a safe distance away, hidden behind an old equipment shed, and they approached on foot. The moon was bright enough to see by, casting everything in silver and shadow. The quarry itself was a terraced descent into the earth, with multiple levels connected by old mining roads. Rusty equipment dotted the landscape. Trucks, excavators, conveyor systems, all slowly being reclaimed by nature. And there, about halfway down in the quarry, lights flickered and danced. Not flashlights or electric lights, but something else. Something that made Naruto's chakra sense tingle with recognition. "That's Chakra," he whispered. "Someone's using techniques down there." Fred immediately shifted to tactical mode. "Velma, readings?" Confirming unusual energy signatures consistent with Naruto's chakra emissions. "Multiple sources. I'm detecting at least 3 distinct patterns." "Fred, I don't think this is just one person. 3 chakra users?" Daphne's eyes widened. "Where did 3 people with abilities like Naruto come from?" "Maybe the same place I did," Naruto said grimly. "Through portals like the one at the Caldwell estate. If someone's been opening gateways, then we need to know who and why," Fred decided. "Standard formation, maximum stealth. We get close enough to observe and gather intel. Then we retreat and bring in Kasumi. No heroics." The last part was directed at Naruto, who had a well-documented tendency toward impulsive action. "No heroics," Naruto agreed, though part of him wanted to rush down there immediately. Other people with chakra, maybe from his world, they might have answers he desperately wanted. They descended into the quarry carefully, using shadows and abandoned equipment for cover. Shaggy and Scooby stayed near the top as lookouts, while Fred, Velma, Daphne, and Naruto worked their way closer to the light sources. As they got nearer, Naruto could hear voices speaking Japanese. His heart hammered. The language of his fragmented memories, the tongue he'd almost forgotten after 7 years in it. "Still unstable," a male voice was saying. "The barrier fluctuations are inconsistent. We can't risk a full opening until we've calibrated the resonance frequency. We're running out of time," a female voice responded. "The organization is getting impatient. They want results, not excuses." "Then tell the organization to send someone who actually knows ceiling theory instead of just throwing money at the problem," a third voice, younger male, snapped. "This isn't something you can brute force. The dimensional mathematics are incredibly complex." Naruto's breath caught. They were trying to open a portal, and they were working for some kind of organization. This was bigger than just random people with abilities. Velma gestured for everyone to get lower as they crept to a vantage point behind an old dump truck. From there, they could see the source of the lights clearly. 3 people stood in a cleared area at the bottom of the quarry, surrounded by elaborate chalk markings that glowed with chakra. 2 men and 1 woman, all appearing to be in their 20s or early 30s, all wearing dark clothes marked with an unfamiliar symbol, a stylized character Naruto didn't recognize. The woman was creating the floating lights through some kind of chakra technique, illuminating their workspace. One of the men was manipulating the chalk markings, causing them to shift and rearrange with hand gesture. The younger man was taking readings with equipment that looked like a bizarre hybrid of scientific instruments and mystical artifacts. "That's an attempted seal array," Naruto whispered to the others, the knowledge coming from somewhere deep, either his fragmentary memories or intuition. "They're trying to create a gateway seal, but they're doing it wrong. The pattern's off." "How can you tell?" Velma asked, already photographing the scene. "I don't know, I just feel it. It's like looking at a math equation where the numbers don't add up." The energy flow is unbalanced. Fred was filming on his phone, documenting everything. We need to know who they're working for. Velma, can you boost audio reception? Velma pulled out a directional microphone and aimed it at the group below. Their voices came through more clearly now. Contacted Hexagon Enterprises after their failure at the Caldwell estate, the woman was saying. Apparently, some local teenagers and an Uzumaki survivor interfere with their acquisition. The organization is not pleased. Naruto tensed. They knew about him. An Uzumaki, the younger man sounded interested. I thought the clan was completely wiped out. Apparently not. Dimensional records show at least one survivor made it through a portal during the QB attack. The organization wants him located and acquired. An Uzumaki with intact sealing knowledge would be invaluable. Acquired. The older man repeated flatly. You mean kidnapped? I mean recruited. Preferably willing. But the organization has methods of persuasion if necessary. Daphne grabbed Naruto's arm, her grip tight with worry. He could feel her trembling slightly. Whether from fear or anger, he wasn't sure. Velma's expression had gone cold, analytical in the way that meant she was furious, but channeling it into problem solving. We need to get this information to Kasumi and the authorities. These people are planning to kidnap Naruto and open an unstable portal that could endanger the entire town, Fred added grimly. This is way beyond a normal investigation. We need adult intervention. But who do we tell? Daphne whispered urgently. The police won't believe us about dimensional portals and chakra users. And if this organization has enough reach to fund Hexagon Enterprises, they might have influence in local government, Velma finished. We can't trust that a normal police report would help. It might even tip them off that we're aware of them. Below, the 3 chakra users continued their work, adjusting the seal array and taking measurements. The energy in the quarry was building, making the hair on Naruto's arms stand up. We should retreat, Fred decided. Get this evidence to Kasumi. Formulate a proper response with someone who understands the stakes. Naruto, can you sense if they're aware of us? Naruto focused, extending his limited chakra sensing abilities. I don't think so. They're concentrating on the seal work. But if I can sense them, eventually they'll sense me back. We should move now. They began to creep backward, maintaining absolute silence. They'd almost made it back to the dump truck when disaster struck. Scooby's bark echoed from the top of the quarry, followed by Shaggy's scream. Like guys, we got company up here. Instantly, the 3 chakra users below snapped to attention, their heads turning toward the mystery machine's location. Someone's here, the woman said sharply. Spread out. Find them. So much for stealth, Fred muttered. Run. They bolted, abandoning subtlety for speed. Behind them, Naruto could feel the chakra signatures moving, pursuing. The woman's floating lights swept across the quarry like searchlights, trying to pin them down. Split up, Fred yelled. Rendezvous at the secondary meeting point. The team scattered. Fred and Daphne went left toward an old office building. Velma grabbed Naruto's hand and pulled him right toward what looked like a maintenance tunnel. They ducked into the tunnel just as one of the lights swept past. The darkness was absolute, broken only by Velma's small flashlight. She pulled out her phone with her free hand, typing rapidly. Texting Kasumi, she whispered, telling her we need immediate assistance at the quarry. Hostile chakra users attempted portal opening, and they know about Naruto. Velma, I'm sorry. If I wasn't here, you guys wouldn't be in danger. She looked at him sharply, her eyes fierce even in the dim light. Don't you dare blame yourself for being targeted by people with bad intentions. You didn't ask for this, and we chose to investigate. That's what we do. We find mysteries and solve them, regardless of personal risk. But, Naruto Uzumaki, you are our friend. More than that, you're part of our team. We don't abandon team members, and we don't let anyone threaten them without fighting back. Clear. The intensity in her voice, the absolute conviction, made something warm bloom in Naruto's chest. Clear. Good. Now, we need to evade these people until Kasumi arrives. I estimate 15 minutes given her location and probable travel speed. Can your chakra sense tell us where they are? Naruto closed his eyes and focused, extending his awareness. One's near the entrance to this tunnel. The other 2 are searching the upper levels. They're spreading out to cover more ground. Then we go deeper. This maintenance tunnel should connect to the main mining shaft. If we can reach that, there are multiple exits according to the geological surveys I studied. They moved deeper into the tunnel. Velma's flashlight, their only illumination. The air grew cooler and damper, and Naruto could hear water dripping somewhere ahead. "Velma," he said as they navigated a junction, "what those people said about the organization wanting to acquire me, I heard, and we're not going to let that happen. You can't promise that. These are trained chakra users, probably adults with years of experience. I've had 1 day of real training. If they really want to take me, I don't know if I can stop them." Velma stopped walking and turned to face him, the flashlight illuminating her face from below in a way that should have been creepy, but somehow just highlighted her determination. "Then we make sure you're never alone and vulnerable. We coordinate with Kasumi. We inform Master Nakamura. We take precautions. Maybe we even tell your situation to certain authorities who would be sympathetic. But Naruto, you are not facing this alone. You have us. You have family here, even if it's not a traditional one." Family. The word hit Naruto like a physical thing. He'd thought of the gang as friends, as teammates, but Velma was right. They were more than that. They were the people who'd taken in a lost, scared kid who couldn't even speak their language and made him belong. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for everything. For teaching me English, for helping with training, for just being there." Velma's expression softened. "You're welcome. Though I should thank you too. Before you joined the gang, our investigations were fairly routine. Fake ghosts, simple cons, the occasional genuinely weird phenomenon. You've made things exponentially more interesting." And she hesitated, unusual for someone normally so confident in her words. "And," Naruto prompted, "and you've made me see beyond just the analytical. You approach problems with instinct and heart in ways my purely logical mind never would. You've helped me grow as an investigator and as a person. So thank you for that." They stood there in the tunnel darkness, close enough that Naruto could see the faint flush on Velma's cheeks, could hear her slightly quickened breathing. The moment stretched, something unspoken hanging between them. A chakra signature flared nearby, breaking the spell. "They found the tunnel entrance," Naruto said urgently. "We need to move." They ran deeper into the maintenance shaft, taking turns at random, trying to lose their pursuer. But Naruto could feel the signature getting closer. Whoever it was had some kind of tracking ability. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, some kind of underground equipment storage. Old mining carts lined the walls, along with rusted tools and equipment. Multiple tunnel mouths led out in different directions. "Which way?" Velma asked, studying the exits. Before Naruto could answer, a voice called out from behind them. "You might as well stop running. I can track chakra signatures within a 100-meter radius. You're the Uzumaki boy, aren't you?" They turned to see the younger man from the seal array, mid-20s with dark hair and a calculating expression. He held his hands in a ready position, chakra visibly swirling around his fingers. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, addressing Naruto. "The organization genuinely wants to recruit you, to help you understand and develop your abilities. Your clan's sealing knowledge is too valuable to lose. By kidnapping me?" Naruto shot back, positioning himself between the man and Velma. "By offering you an opportunity. This world doesn't understand what you are. You've been fumbling around with inadequate training for years, relying on a woman whose sealing knowledge is limited to what her mother taught her. We can offer you real instruction, access to historical Uzumaki texts, connections to other survivors." Other survivors? Despite himself, Naruto felt a pull of hope. Other people from his clan, people who might know his family, his history. "Don't listen to him, Naruto," Velma warned. "Classic recruitment tactic. Offer what you most desperately want, then exploit that desire for control." The man smiled slightly. "Smart girl. You must be Velma Dinkley, the local genius who's been helping our little Uzumaki here with his training. The organization has files on all of you. Mystery Incorporated, the amateur detective group that stumbles into real phenomena with surprising frequency. Files on us." Velma's voice went cold. "You've been surveilling teenagers? We've been monitoring dimensional weak points and the individuals who interact with. You and your friends have encountered genuine supernatural phenomena at least 15 times in the past 3 years. That's not coincidence. That's sensitivity to dimensional fluctuations. You're probably not conscious of it, but you're drawn to the same energy convergences that allow cross-dimensional travel." Naruto's mind raced, processing this information while watching for an attack. "What's your organization actually after? Why are you trying to open portals?" "Knowledge. Power. The betterment of mankind through understanding the multiverse. Does the specific motivation matter? The point is, we have resources, expertise, and the ability to help you become what the Uzumaki were meant to be. Join us willingly, and your friends can continue their little mystery hunts unmolested. Resist, and things become complicated. That's a threat, Velma said flatly. That's reality. The organization always gets what it wants eventually. I'm simply offering the path of least resistance. Naruto felt his chakra stirring, responding to his anger and fear. Blue energy flickered around his hands unconsciously. I'm not joining some shady organization that threatens my friends. And I'm definitely not letting you open unstable portals that could destroy this town. The man sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. The organization predicted you'd be irrationally loyal to your current attachments. They have protocols for this scenario. He raised his hands, and Naruto felt the chakra's signature surge. But instead of attacking, the man made a series of rapid hand signs, something Naruto recognized instinctively despite never having seen it before. He started to warn Velma, but the technique was already complete. A pulse of chakra exploded outward, and Naruto's vision swam. His knees buckled, and he felt Velma catch him as he fell. Chakra disruption technique, the man explained calmly, temporarily destabilizes an opponent's energy flow, causing disorientation and muscle weakness. Non-lethal but effective. I'll be taking the boy now. You girl, I suggest you don't try to interfere. Through his blurred vision, Naruto saw Velma help him stay upright, her arm around his waist supporting his weight. She was shaking, whether from fear or fury. He couldn't tell, but her voice was steady. No. The man raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? I said no. You're not taking him. I don't care what kind of techniques you have or how powerful your organization is. Naruto is under my protection, and I don't abandon people under my protection. That's admirably loyal, but tactically stupid. You're a normal human girl with no combat abilities facing a trained chakra user. There's no scenario where you win this confrontation. Velma pulled something from her pocket, a small device that looked like a modified taser. Actually, according to my calculations, there are several scenarios. In my research on chakra, I discovered that it's particularly sensitive to certain electromagnetic frequencies. This device emits a pulse specifically calibrated to interfere with chakra control. Bluffing. One way to find out. She activated the device, and a high-pitched whine filled the chamber. The man's chakra signature wavered, flickering like a candle in wind. His confident expression cracked into surprise. What? How? Science, Velma said with grim satisfaction. The great equalizer. Naruto, can you move? The disruption technique was fading, Naruto's natural vitality already fighting it off. Getting there. Then I suggest we run. My device only has about 30 seconds of charge, and his partners will have sensed the electromagnetic interference. They ran, Naruto leaning on Velma until his strength returned fully. Behind them, the man shouted in frustration, but the electromagnetic pulse had bought them crucial seconds. They navigated the tunnels by instinct and luck, taking random turns until they saw light ahead, one of the secondary exits Velma had mentioned. They emerged onto the quarry's upper level, gasping for breath in the cool night air. The mystery machine screeched up beside them, Fred at the wheel and Daphne in the passenger seat. The back doors flew open. Get in, Fred yelled. They dove inside, and Fred gunned the engine before they even had the doors closed. The van fishtailed on loose gravel, then found purchase and rocketed toward the main road. Everyone okay? Fred asked, eyes on the rearview mirror. Define okay, Velma panted. We were threatened, chased, and nearly kidnapped by an organization with files on all of us. But we're alive and mobile, so I suppose that counts. Daphne turned in her seat, her eyes finding Naruto. Are you hurt? He was hit with some kind of chakra disruption technique, Velma explained. It's wearing off now, but he'll probably feel the effects for a while. I'm fine, Naruto insisted, though his hand still trembled slightly. But those people, they're not just random chakra users. They're organized, well-funded, and they've been watching all of us. This is way bigger than we thought. I've already contacted Kasumi, Fred said. She's meeting us at the community center with Master Nakamura. We need to brief them fully and formulate a response. The ride back was tense, everyone processing what they'd learned. Naruto sat between Velma and Daphne again, but this time both girls were pressed close to him, protective, reassuring. That thing you did with the electromagnetic pulse, Naruto said to Velma. That was incredible. You built that from your chakra research. Velma nodded, her scientific mind already analyzing the encounter. theoretical application that proved effective in practice. I hypothesized that since chakra is an energy form, it should be susceptible to electromagnetic interference just like any other energy system. I built the device based on the frequency patterns I observed during your training sessions, calibrated to disrupt chakra flow without causing biological harm. You weaponize science against chakra users, Naruto said, awed. That's brilliant and terrifying. It's equalization, Velma corrected. Those people have abilities that make them objectively more dangerous than normal humans. If we're going to protect ourselves and investigate these phenomena, we need countermeasures that level the playing field. Daphne squeezed Naruto's hand. Are you really okay? That man said they have files on us that they've been watching. That's really creepy. I know, and I'm sorry. If I wasn't part of the gang, you guys wouldn't be targets. Stop apologizing for existing, Daphne said firmly. We're targets because we investigate mysteries, and this is a mystery that needed investigating. The fact that it's connected to you just makes it personal, which honestly makes me more determined to solve it. At the community center, Kasumi and Master Nakamura were waiting, both looking grave. The gang piled out of the mystery machine and into the dojo, where they recounted everything. The chakra users at the quarry, the attempted portal opening, the organization, the threats, all of it. Kasumi's expression grew darker with each detail. The organization they mentioned, I know of them. They call themselves the Dimensional Research Collective, or DRC for short. They've been operating for decades, trying to map and exploit cross-dimensional phenomena. My mother had several encounters with them. They're dangerous, well-connected, and absolutely ruthless in pursuing their goals. They want Naruto for his sealing knowledge, Velma said. But if he doesn't have intact memories of Uzumaki techniques, why would they be so interested? Because sealing knowledge isn't just learned, it's inherent, Kasumi explained. The Uzumaki clan had a genetic predisposition towards seal mastery. Our chakra naturally resonates with sealing formulas in ways others doesn't. Even without conscious training, Naruto's chakra would instinctively recognize and interact with sealing techniques. Given proper instruction and access to clan texts, he could potentially recreate lost Uzumaki seals from pure intuition, which makes him valuable, Master Nakamura said grimly. Not just as a student, but as a resource to be exploited. We need to increase security, Fred said, shifting into tactical planning mode. These people know where we operate, where Naruto lives, potentially where he trains. We need countermeasures. Agreed, Kasumi said. Starting immediately, Naruto will not train alone. Either I or Master Nakamura will be present at all times. When he's at school, someone from your group should always be within visual range. We create a buddy system that makes isolation impossible. I can modify my electromagnetic pulse device into a personal defense system, Velma offered, small enough to carry, with enough charge for multiple uses. If Naruto has it on him at all times, he can disrupt chakra techniques long enough to escape or call for help. And I can teach him basic escape and evasion, Daphne added. Lock-picking, how to spot when he's being followed, safe routes through the city. Practical skills that don't require chakra. Naruto looked around at all these people, his teacher, his master, his friends, all focused on protecting him, on keeping him safe and free. The warmth in his chest grew almost painful. Thank you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. All of you. I don't know what I did to deserve this. You exist, Velma said simply. That's enough. They spent the next several hours planning security protocols, coordination schedules, and response procedures. By the time the meeting broke up after midnight, Naruto felt simultaneously exhausted and energized. As everyone prepared to leave, Velma pulled Naruto aside. I meant what I said in the tunnel, she told him quietly. You're not alone in this. Whatever comes, however this organization tries to come at you, we'll face it together. I know. And Velma, that thing you said about me helping you grow, about approaching problems with instinct and heart. Yes, you do the same for me. You've taught me to think, to analyze, to see patterns instead of just reacting. You've made me smarter, better at problem solving. We make each other better. Velma's cheeks colored, visible even in the dim light. Yes, we do. It's a positive feedback loop of mutual improvement. Is that the scientific way of saying we're a good team? It's the scientific way of saying we complement each other's strengths and compensate for each other's weaknesses in a synergistic partnership that enhances overall effectiveness. Naruto laughed. You could just say yes. Where's the precision in that? But she was smiling too. They stood there for a moment, close in the community center's small entryway, and Naruto felt that same charged atmosphere from the tunnel, that sense of something unspoken hovering between them. "Naruto," Daphne's voice called from outside. "Come on, we're giving you a ride home." The moment broke, but something had shifted. As Naruto followed Velma out to where Daphne waited by the mystery machine, he realized that his feelings for his friends, for these girls specifically, were growing more complicated every day. He cared about both of them, deeply, in ways that went beyond friendship, but that he didn't have words for yet. And based on the way they looked at him, the way they positioned themselves near him, the way they both seemed to compete for his attention in subtle ways, they might feel the same. But that was a mystery for another day. Tonight, he just let himself be grateful for their presence, for their protection, for their unwavering support. As the mystery machine carried them through Coalsville's quiet streets, Naruto sat between Velma and Daphne and felt, for the first time since the QB attack had sent him hurtling through dimensions, truly safe. Tomorrow would bring more training, more challenges, more threats from the Dimensional Research Collective. But tonight he had his family, and that was enough. The 3 weeks before school started passed in a blur of relentless training, heightened security, and escalating tension. Naruto's routine became a carefully orchestrated dance of conditioning, education, and constant vigilance. Every morning at dawn, he met Kasumi at the Caldwell estate. The physical conditioning intensified. Longer runs, higher rep counts, exercises specifically designed to build the legendary Uzumaki endurance. By the end of the first week, Naruto could run 15 miles without stopping, maintain the leaf concentration technique for 3 minutes, and create small chakra flames that lasted over a minute. "You're progressing faster than expected," Kasumi observed on the 12th day of training, watching as Naruto completed his 500th push-up without his form breaking. "Most students take months to reach this level of physical conditioning. Your Uzumaki vitality is expressing itself strongly." "Is that good?" Naruto panted, moving seamlessly in his sit-ups. "It's exceptional, but it also means I need to increase the difficulty faster than I planned." "Your body adapts too quickly to remain challenged by basic conditioning. Starting tomorrow, we incorporate weighted training and chakra circulation exercises during physical work." True to her word, the next morning Kasumi presented Naruto with weighted training clothes, a vest, wristbands, and ankle weights that together added 50 pounds to his frame. "You'll wear these during all physical training," she explained, "and eventually during your normal daily activity. The constant resistance will force your body to adapt, building strength and endurance, while simultaneously requiring you to maintain chakra circulation to compensate for the added weight." The first day with the weights was brutal. Naruto's run time dropped by nearly half, his rep counts plummeted, and he felt like he was moving through molasses. But by the end of the week, he'd adapted enough to complete his full routine, and his chakra control had noticeably improved from the constant circulation practice. Sealing theory progressed more slowly but steadily. Kasumi introduced him to the fundamental concepts: how symbols represented energy patterns, how combinations created effects, how chakra infusion activated dormant formulas. Sealing is the intersection of art, science, and spirituality, she explained one morning, watching as Naruto painstakingly copied basic seal characters. Each symbol must be perfect. A single misdrawn line can mean the difference between a functional seal and a catastrophic explosion. This is why Uzumaki seal masters train for decades before attempting anything complex. "How long before I can actually create a working seal?" "At your current rate? Perhaps 3 to 4 months before I'd trust you with even the simplest storage seal. Rushing this process is how seal masters die. Naruto, patience and precision are not optional." The afternoons brought a different kind of education. Velma had taken it upon herself to ensure Naruto was academically prepared for school, drilling him on mathematics, science, history, and literature during long sessions at the library or her house. "You're actually quite intelligent," she observed one afternoon as they worked through algebra problems. "You grasp mathematical concepts quickly once they're properly explained. The issue isn't capability, it's that you've never had structured, consistent education before." "Master Nakamura taught me reading and writing, and he taught me English," Naruto said, working through an equation. "Everything else is kind of scattered, which is why we're filling the gaps now. You'll be entering 8th grade, which means you should have foundational knowledge in core subjects. Literature and history are your weakest areas. Understandable, given you literally come from a different world, but we can address that with targeted reading and context building. She handed him a list of books. Start with these. They'll give you the cultural literacy you'll need to understand references and discussions in class. I've also prepared study guides for US history and world geography. Naruto looked at the list. 20 books ranging from classic novels to historical texts. This is a lot of reading. You're a fast learner when motivated. Besides, many of these are genuinely interesting stories. Think of them as mysteries to solve, each book revealing something about how people think and why societies develop the way they do. Daphne's contribution to his education was more practical, but equally valuable. She taught him social navigation, how to read body language, how to identify cliques and social hierarchies, how to avoid common social pitfalls that could make school miserable. Coolsville Junior High is pretty standard as schools go, she explained during one of their sessions at the malt shop. You've got your popular kids, mostly athletes and the wealthy families. Your academics, the smart kids who focus on grades and clubs. Your artists and alternative crowd. Your gamers and tech nerds. And everyone else in between. Where do we fit? Naruto asked, genuinely curious. Daphne smiled. We're kind of our own category. Mystery Incorporated has a reputation. We're the weird kids who solve crimes and deal with ghosts. Some people think we're cool. Some think we're nerds. Some think we're crazy. But mostly, people respect us because we're good at what we do and we don't really fit in normal boxes. So I'll be the weird foreign kid with the mystery-solving ghost hunters. Great. You'll be fine, Daphne assured him. You're genuine, loyal, and once people get past your tendency to accidentally break things, you're actually pretty likable. Plus, having Velma, Fred, and me vouching for you will help a lot. We're not popular in the traditional sense, but we're known and generally respected. She also taught him practical skills, how to pick simple locks, for emergency situations only, how to spot when he was being followed, how to identify the fastest escape routes in unfamiliar buildings. Skills that had saved the gang multiple times during investigations, and that might save Naruto if the DRC came after him at school. The evenings remained dedicated to Master Nakamura's traditional training, martial arts kata, meditation, philosophical discussions about discipline and inner strength. The old master's approach complemented Kasumi's perfectly, building spiritual fortitude while she built physical capability. You are becoming stronger, Master Nakamura observed one evening as they sat in meditation. But remember, Naruto-kun, true strength is not in muscles or techniques. It is an unshakable spirit, in bonds that cannot be broken, in purpose that transcends self-interest. I understand, Master. Do you? Then tell me, why do you train so hard? What drives this relentless pursuit of strength? Naruto thought carefully before answering. At first, I wanted to understand what I am, where I came from. But now, I train to protect the people I care about. My friends, this town, this world that took me in. The DRC wants to use me as a tool, but I refuse to be helpless. I'll become strong enough that no one can take away my choices or threaten the people I love. Master Nakamura nodded slowly. A worthy purpose. But be careful that protection does not become control, that love does not become possession. The strongest bonds are those freely given, not desperately clutched. The cryptic advice puzzled Naruto, but he filed it away for later contemplation. Throughout all, the gang maintained constant vigilance. They'd had no direct contact with the DRC since the quarry incident, but Velma's monitoring of local surveillance and digital communications suggested the organization was still operating in the area, just more carefully. They're watching and waiting, she reported during one of their regular strategy meetings at Fred's house. I've detected unusual network traffic near our homes and regular hangouts, and there have been several strangers in town asking questions about the local kids who investigate supernatural phenomena. Should we be lying low? Shaggy asked nervously. Absolutely not, Fred said firmly. If we change our patterns drastically, they'll know we're aware of them and potentially escalate. We maintain normal activities, but with heightened security protocols. The buddy system stays in effect. Everyone carries the communication devices Velma built, and we document anything suspicious. The communication devices were Velma's latest invention. Modified smartphones with encrypted channels, GPS tracking, and emergency alert functions. Each gang member carried one, creating a network that allowed instant communication and location monitoring. If anyone gets separated or threatened, hit the alert button Velma had explained when distributing them. It sends an immediate notification to everyone else and to Kasumi, and starts recording audio and video evidence. We'll know exactly where you are and what's happening. Naruto carried his device everywhere, along with the electromagnetic pulse disruptor Velma had miniaturized into something resembling a car key fob. Between those and his slowly improving chakra control, he felt slightly less vulnerable. But the real security came from never being alone. Velma or Daphne accompanied him everywhere, to training, to the library, to the malt shop, even just walking around town. They rotated naturally, sometimes both present, never leaving him isolated. Naruto noticed that their presence was becoming less about security and more about preference, his and theirs. He looked forward to Velma's morning library sessions, to the way she explained complex concepts with patient clarity, to the small smile she got when he grasped something particularly quickly. He cherished Daphne's afternoon social coaching, her warmth and encouragement, the way she made him feel capable and valued. And he was increasingly aware that his feelings for them were deepening beyond friendship, becoming something more complex and intense. Something that made his heart race when Velma leaned close to show him something in a book, or when Daphne laughed at one of his jokes. Something that probably should have worried him more than it did. The night before school started, the gang gathered at the community center for a final preparation session. Kasumi and Master Nakamura were there too, treating this like the important transition it was. "Remember the protocols," Fred said, reviewing their security plan one last time. "Never leave Naruto isolated. At least one of us maintains visual contact at all times during school hours. If anyone suspicious approaches or anything feels off, alert the group immediately. I've mapped the school layout and identified optimal routes between classes that minimize exposure to isolated areas," Velma added, pulling up blueprints on her tablet. "I've also created a schedule analysis showing which routes have the highest student traffic density at various times. Naruto, you'll want to stick to these corridors. Like, what if the bad guys just attack the school?" Shaggy asked, voicing everyone's fear. "Unlikely," Kasumi said. "The DRC operates in shadows. A direct assault on a public school would draw exactly the kind of attention they want to avoid. They'll try subtlety first, recruitment, manipulation, possibly attempting to isolate Naruto through social engineering. Which is why we've prepared countermeasures for social manipulation," Daphne said. She'd created what she called identity anchoring protocols. Basically, regular check-ins and conversations designed to reinforce Naruto's sense of belonging and loyalty to the group, making him resistant to external recruitment attempts. "It sounds like brainwashing when you put it that way," Naruto said, half joking. "It's the opposite of brainwashing," Velma corrected. "Brainwashing involves isolation, information control, and breaking down existing identity. We're reinforcing your connections, ensuring open communication, and strengthening your autonomous decision-making. It's psychological immunization against manipulation tactics." Master Nakamura placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. "Tomorrow, you enter a new world, one of social hierarchies, academic pressure, and normal teenage concerns. But you are not normal, Naruto-kun, and pretending to be will only create internal conflict. Be yourself, trust your friends, and remember that your worth is not determined by others' opinions." "Eloquent as always, Master Nakamura," Kasumi said with a slight smile. "But he's right. Don't try to hide what you are, Naruto. You're entering school as an Uzumaki, as a chakra user, as someone with a destiny larger than typical teenage concerns. Own that identity confidently, even though it makes me a target, especially because it makes you a target. Fear and shame make people vulnerable. Confidence and self-acceptance make them strong." After the meeting, as everyone prepared to leave, Velma and Daphne both lingered, clearly wanting to speak with Naruto privately. They glanced at each other, some silent communication passing between them, before Daphne nodded slightly and stepped back. "I'll wait in the van," she said, though something in her expression suggested reluctance. Once alone, Velma adjusted her glasses in that way that meant she was nervous but trying to hide it. "I wanted to give you something," she said, pulling a small notebook from her bag. "I know tomorrow is probably going to be overwhelming. New environment, new people, constant social navigation on top of security concerns. So I made you this." She handed him the notebook. Inside were detailed notes on every aspect of school life: class schedules, teacher profiles, social dynamics, even maps with optimal routes highlighted and potential problematic areas marked. It's a comprehensive guide to surviving Coolsville Junior High, Velma explained. Everything I've learned over 3 years of attending, organized for maximum usefulness. Consider it your investigation manual for the mystery of middle school. Naruto flipped through the pages, awed by the level of detail. Velma, this must have taken you hours. 12 hours over the past week, she admitted. But you're worth it. You've worked so hard preparing for this. The academic studying, the social coaching, maintaining your training schedule. I wanted to give you every possible advantage. Thank you. Really, this is incredible. Velma smiled, then hesitated. Naruto, there's something else. Something I've been wanting to say, but haven't found the right moment. What is it? When we were in that tunnel at the quarry, when that man threatened you, I said you were under my protection. I'm in it, but it's more than just protection. She paused, searching for words. You're important to me. More important than I initially realized. Somewhere between teaching you English and investigating mysteries together, you became one of the most significant people in my life. Naruto's heart hammered. You're important to me too, Velma. You've done more for me than I can ever repay. You gave me language, knowledge, understanding. That's not what I mean. Velma met his eyes directly, her usual analytical distance replaced by raw honesty. I mean important in a way that goes beyond friendship or partnership. I think about you constantly. I worry about you. I feel happier when you're around and incomplete when you're not. I'm fairly certain that's... Velma, we need to go. Fred's voice called from outside. Daphne's got an early curfew tonight. The moment shattered. Velma stepped back, her analytical mask sliding back into place, though her cheeks were flushed. We should go, she said quietly. Good luck tomorrow. Remember everything we prepared, and don't hesitate to signal if you need support. She left quickly, leaving Naruto standing alone in the community center, his mind reeling. Had Velma been about to confess feelings for him? Real, romantic feelings? And if so, what did that mean about his own complicated emotions toward both her and Daphne? He barely slept that night, his mind cycling between excitement about school, anxiety about the DRC, confusion about Velma's almost confession, and the bone-deep exhaustion from 3 weeks of relentless training. When his alarm went off at 5:30 a.m., Naruto dragged himself out of bed, went through his morning routine, and headed to the Caldwell estate for training. Even though school started at 8:30, Kasumi had made it clear that training schedule didn't change. Discipline means consistency, she said as Naruto arrived exactly at dawn, slightly less exhausted than his first day, but still wishing for more sleep. Warriors don't get days off because of social obligations. You train, then you attend school, then you train more. This is what commitment looks like. The morning session was intense. Wearing his weighted training clothes, Naruto ran 20 miles, completed 1,000 push-ups in sets of 200, worked on chakra control exercises until his reserves were nearly depleted, and studied ceiling theory until his eyes blurred. By the time he finished and made it home to shower and change for school, he had exactly 15 minutes before he needed to leave. Master Nakamura had prepared a massive breakfast, enough protein and carbohydrates to fuel a grown man through a full day of labor, and watched critically as Naruto consumed it all. You will face challenges today that have nothing to do with physical strength or chakra, the old master said. Social navigation, academic pressure, the subtle cruelty of adolescent hierarchies. Remember that true strength is adapting to any situation, not just those where you can fight. I'll remember. And Naruto-kun? The situation with Miss Dinkley and Miss Blake. That too requires wisdom and care. Hearts are more fragile than bodies. Do not be careless with theirs or your own. Naruto nearly choked on his rice. How did you? I am old, not blind. The way they look at you, the way you look at them, it is obvious to anyone paying attention. But that is a different kind of battle, one where there are no clear victories, only mutual understanding or mutual pain. Choose your path carefully. The mystery machine picked him up at 8 a.m. sharp. Fred was driving, with Daphne in the passenger seat and Velma waiting in the back. Shaggy and Scooby had graduated the previous year and were taking a gap year before college, so it was just the 4 of them. Naruto climbed in and immediately found himself sandwiched between Velma and Daphne in the back seat. Both girls greeted him warmly, though Velma seemed slightly shy after last night's interrupted confession. First day of school, Daphne said brightly. Excited? Nervous? Terrified? All of the above, Naruto admitted. plus exhausted from training this morning. You trained before school? Fred asked from the front. That's dedication. That's Kasumi's requirement. Training doesn't stop for social events. Brutal but effective, Velma observed. Consistent conditioning produces superior results to sporadic, intense effort. Your progress over the past 3 weeks has been remarkable. Thanks to your help. That study guide you made, the electromagnetic pulse device, all the academic prep. I couldn't have done this without you. Velma's cheeks colored slightly. Team effort. We all contributed. Coolsville Junior High was a sprawling brick building that looked like it had been built in the 1960s and never significantly updated. Students milled around the front entrance, clustering in groups, laughing, talking, living the normal teenage life Naruto had never experienced. Remember the protocols, Fred said as they parked. Stay together, watch for anything unusual, maintain regular check-ins via the communication devices. They walked into school as a unit, drawing immediate attention. Mystery Incorporated had a reputation, and Naruto was clearly a new addition to the group. He felt dozens of eyes on him, heard whispers start immediately. That's the new kid who lives with Master Nakamura. I heard he's from Japan or China or somewhere. He's the one who helps with their ghost hunting stuff. Kinda cute in a weird way. Naruto tried to ignore the attention, focusing instead on navigating to the main office where he needed to pick up his schedule and locker assignment. Velma walked on his left, Daphne on his right, both close enough that their arms occasionally brushed his. The school's secretary, Mrs. Henderson, was a kind-faced woman in her 50s who smiled warmly when they entered. You must be Naruto Uzumaki. We've been expecting you. Master Nakamura sent over all your paperwork and correspondence course records. Very impressive work, young man. She handed him a folder containing his schedule, locker assignment, student handbook, and various orientation materials. You're in 8th grade, advanced placement for mathematics and science based on your test scores. Let's see. First period is English Literature with Ms. Rodriguez. Second period Algebra 2 with Mr. Chun. Third period World History with Mr. Murphy. Naruto scanned the schedule, relief flooding through him when he saw that he shared 4 out of 7 classes with Velma and 3 with Daphne. Between them, he'd have familiar faces in almost every class. Your locker is number 247, second floor, East Wing, Mrs. Henderson continued. And since you're new, we've assigned you a student guide for your first week to help you navigate. Let me just call, perfect timing. The office door opened and a girl walked in, tall, athletic build, with long blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail and striking blue eyes. She wore the school's volleyball uniform and moved with easy confidence. Samantha, perfect. This is Naruto Uzumaki, our new 8th grader. Could you show him around for the first week? Help him get oriented. The girl, Samantha, looked Naruto over with frank assessment, then smiled. Sure, Mrs. Henderson. Naruto Im-sam Karte, captain of the volleyball team, president of the student council, and apparently your temporary tour guide. She offered her hand, and Naruto shook it, noting her firm grip and calloused palms. Someone who worked with her hands, trained regularly. An athlete. Thanks, he said, though I actually have friends who already attend. Oh, you mean Mystery Incorporated? Sam's smile turned knowing. Yeah, I know Velma and Daphne. Smart girls, bit eccentric with the whole ghost hunting thing, but cool. You've been hanging out with them, right? They're my best friends, Naruto said, immediately defensive. Relax, not criticizing, just stating facts. Anyway, even with them here, there's a lot about school culture and unwritten rules that you'll need to know. Social navigation stuff that goes beyond just finding your classes. It was essentially what Daphne had told him, but coming from someone clearly more integrated into the school's social hierarchy, it hit different. Okay, Naruto agreed. I appreciate the help. Great. Let's start with the tour. You 3, she nodded to Velma, Daphne, and Fred, can tag along if you want, or head to your own lockers. First period starts in 20 minutes. Velma and Daphne exchange glances, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, Velma said, "We'll come along." For security reasons. Sam raised an eyebrow. Security reasons? Is the new kid in some kind of danger? Just being cautious, Daphne said smoothly. Naruto's had some complicated situations recently. We'll like to keep an eye out. Mysterious. I like it. Okay, come on then, entourage included. Sam led them through the school, pointing out important locations: cafeteria, gym, library, computer lab, various classrooms. She explained the social geography with the same directness she'd shown earlier. Popular kids sit center left in the cafeteria. Academics and brainy types sit right side near the windows. That's where you'll probably end up, Velma. Athletes and sports crowds sit back left by the vending machines. Artists and alternative kids sit back right. Everyone else fills in the gaps. Sounds very hierarchical, Velma observed critically. It is. Welcome to middle school. But honestly, most people don't care that much about the hierarchy unless you actively try to mess with it. Stay in your lane, be decent to people, and you'll be fine. They reached locker 247, and Naruto opened it to find it empty except for a small note that made his blood run cold. Welcome to school, Uzumaki. We'll be watching. Don't do anything rash. DRC. He immediately closed the locker and casually crumpled the note, slipping it into his pocket. But Velma had seen his expression change. What's wrong? She asked quietly. Nothing. Just a prank note from someone. I'll deal with it later. But the message was clear. The DRC had access to the school, had known his locker assignment before he did, and wanted him to know they could reach him anytime they wanted. So much for feeling safe. Sam was still talking, oblivious to the tension. And you want to avoid the third-floor bathrooms during lunch. That's where the stoner kids hang out, and teachers do random sweeps. Gets awkward. Oh, and the library's actually really good. Mr. Peterson, the librarian, is cool about letting students work on projects during study hall. He and Velma are basically best friends. Mr. Peterson appreciates intellectual curiosity and maintains an excellent reference section, Velma said primly. The first bell rang, signaling 10 minutes until classes started. Students began flowing through the hallways in organized chaos. Okay, that's the basic tour, Sam said. First period. What do you have, Naruto? English literature with Ms. Rodriguez. Oh, I have that too. Come on, I'll show you where it is. You too, she addressed Velma and Daphne. Don't you have classes to get to? I have English with Naruto as well, Velma said, checking her schedule. And I have art first period, Daphne added, but it's in the same hallway, so I'll walk with you. Sam gave them both an amused look. You guys really aren't letting him out of your sight, are you? Is this a boyfriend protection squad thing or something? Both girls flushed, and Naruto felt his own face heat. It's a friend protection thing, Daphne said firmly. Naruto's important to all of us. Uh-huh, sure. Sam's smile suggested she didn't buy it, but she didn't push. Whatever, let's get moving before we're late. English literature was in room 203, a bright classroom with posters of classic literature, famous authors covering the walls. Ms. Rodriguez was a young teacher, probably late 20s, with warm brown eyes and an enthusiastic energy that immediately put Naruto at ease. Class, we have a new student joining us today. Everyone, this is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself? All eyes turned to him. Naruto stood awkwardly, hyper-aware of the attention. I'm Naruto. I've been living in Coolsville for 7 years with Master Nakamura at the community center. I help out with Mystery Incorporated, the investigation group. And I'm glad to be here. Mystery Incorporated. How exciting. Ms. Rodriguez beamed. We've all heard about your adventures solving supernatural mysteries. Are the ghosts really real? Some are, some aren't. Naruto answered honestly. It depends on the case. Fascinating. Well, welcome to Advanced English Literature. We're currently studying Shakespearean tragedy, specifically Hamlet. Have you read it? Velma had me read it last week as prep, Naruto admitted, shooting Velma a grateful look. She smiled slightly from her seat near the windows. Excellent. Then you'll be able to jump right in. Please take any open seat. The only seats available were one next to Velma and one near Sam at the back. Naruto chose the seat next to Velma without hesitation, earning a triumphant look from her and a slightly disappointed expression from Sam. The class proceeded normally enough. Discussion of Hamlet's character, analysis of key scenes, debate about his madness being real or performed. Naruto found himself actually enjoying it, especially when Velma made insightful observations that sparked deeper discussion. But he couldn't shake the awareness of that note in his pocket, the knowledge that the DRC was watching, waiting. Second period was Algebra 2 with Mr. Chun, a strict but fair teacher who believed math was the universal language. Again, Naruto and Velma shared the class, and again he sat next to her. You're quite good at mathematics, she murmured during independent work time. Better than you give yourself credit for. I have a good teacher, Naruto replied, solving equations with a methodical approach she taught him. Third period, World History with Mr. Murphy. was his first class without Velma or Daphne. He felt their absence immediately, the security of their presence gone. But Sam was in this class too, and she casually positioned herself at the desk next to his. "So," she said as Mr. Murphy started his lecture on ancient civilizations, "what's the deal with you and Velma? You two seem really close." "She's my best friend. She taught me English when I first got here. Just friends." Naruto hesitated. "It's complicated." Sam grinned. "That usually means, yes, but we haven't figured it out yet." "And Daphne? She seems pretty attached too. Also my best friend." "They both are." "Uh-huh." Word of advice from someone who's watched a lot of relationship drama go down in this school. Figure out what you want before someone gets hurt. Two girls who are both clearly into you? That a powder keg waiting to explode. I'm not. They're not. We're all just friends. Sure you are. Sam's tone made it clear she thought he was being deliberately oblivious. "Look, I don't know you well yet, but I can read people pretty well. You care about both of them, they care about you, and nobody's being honest about what that really means. Just be careful, okay? The longer you wait to address it, the messier it gets." Before Naruto could respond, Mr. Murphy called for attention, launching into a detailed explanation of Mesopotamian city-states. But Sam's words echoed in his mind for the rest of class. Was he being unfair to Velma and Daphne by not addressing his feelings? Was he leading them both on by being so close to both without choosing? But how could he choose? They were both incredible, both important to him in different but equally vital ways. Velma with her brilliant mind and unwavering support. Daphne with her warmth and practical wisdom. He couldn't imagine his life without either of them. Fourth period was physical education, which Naruto had been quietly dreading. He was wearing his weighted training clothes under his normal outfit, 50 pounds that would make him significantly slower and weaker than his actual capability. But Kasumi had been firm. The weights stay on except during shower/changing situations where they'd be noticed. Part of training is adapting to constant resistance. If you can fight and move normally while wearing 50 pounds of extra weight, imagine how fast and strong you'll be without them. The PE teacher, Coach Morrison, was a former military man with a no-nonsense attitude and a whistle he used liberally. Today's activity was basketball, something Naruto had played casually but never formally. "Uzumaki, you're with Carter's team." Sam waved him over to join her group, which also included several other athletic-looking students who clearly took PE seriously. The game started, and Naruto immediately realized his problem. Even with his Uzumaki vitality and months of training, the weights made him slower than the other players. He could keep up, but not excel. Every jump felt sluggish, every sprint like running through water. "Come on, new kid," one of Sam's teammates, a tall boy named Marcus, shouted. "Keep up." Naruto pushed harder, drawing on his chakra to enhance his movements subtly. Not enough to be obviously superhuman, but enough to compensate for the weights. His next sprint was faster, his jump higher. He managed to steal the ball and pass to Sam, who scored easily. "Nice," she called. "Didn't know you could move like that." But the exertion was draining his already depleted chakra reserves. He'd trained for 4 hours this morning, studied intensively, and now he was burning through what little energy remained. By the end of the class, Naruto was exhausted in a way that went beyond physical tiredness. His chakra was nearly empty, his muscles screamed from fighting the weights, and he could barely focus. In the locker room afterward, Sam approached him again. "Hey, you okay? You look like you're going to pass out near the end there. Just tired. Had a really early morning." "Yeah? Doing what?" Naruto hesitated, then decided partial honesty was safer than lying. "Training. Martial arts and conditioning work. I've been studying with Master Nakamura for years." Sam's eyes lit up with recognition. "Oh, that explains the movement quality. I thought I recognized martial arts training in how you move. I do kickboxing myself. Been competing since I was 10. We should spar sometime." "Maybe," Naruto said non-committally, though the idea was appealing. Someone athletic and skilled to practice with could be valuable. Fifth period was lunch, and Naruto met up with Velma, Daphne, and Fred in the cafeteria. They claimed a table in the academic section, right where Sam had predicted. "How's your first morning been?" Daphne asked, unpacking a carefully prepared lunch from home. "Intense. But okay, I think. The classes are manageable. Sam's been helpful, and nobody's tried to kidnap me yet." Velma said darkly. "Show me that note from your locker." Naruto pulled out the crumpled paper and handed it over. Velma smoothed it out, studying it with her analytical gaze while Daphne and Fred leaned into standard printer paper, generic font, no distinguishing marks, Velma observed. They're being deliberately untraceable. But the fact that they had access to place this in your locker before you arrived suggests either direct access to school administration systems or physical infiltration of the building. Could be a janitor or office worker on their payroll, Fred suggested. We should investigate the school staff, look for anyone new or anyone with suspicious backgrounds. I can help with that, Daphne offered. My mom's on the school board. I can get access to personnel records through her. They spent lunch planning their investigation, but Naruto found himself distracted. Across the cafeteria, he could see Sam sitting with the popular crowd, athletes and student government types, all laughing and talking with easy confidence. She caught him looking and waved, a friendly gesture that somehow felt weighted with meaning. "That's Sam Carter," Daphne said, noticing his attention. Student council president, volleyball captain, one of the most popular girls in school. "She's been your guide today." "Yeah, she's been really helpful. Actually, straightforward, doesn't play games. She's also very pretty and athletic and confident," Velma observed neutrally, though something in her tone suggested it wasn't as neutral as she pretended. "I guess. I hadn't really thought about it." Both Daphne and Velma gave him identical looks of disbelief. "What?" Naruto asked defensively. "Nothing," they said in unison, then glanced at each other with expressions that suggested some kind of silent agreement. The rest of lunch passed in planning and normal teenage conversation, but Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The way Velma and Daphne were acting, slightly possessive, hyper-aware of other girls talking to him, coordinating their responses, it felt like they were circling wagons. Sixth period was science with Ms. Park, which both Velma and Naruto shared. This was apparently Velma's favorite class, where she got to indulge her love of systematic inquiry and experimental methodology. "Today we're starting our unit on energy and matter," Ms. Park announced. "Specifically, we'll be exploring different forms of energy, how they transfer and transform, and the fundamental laws governing these interactions." Velma's eyes practically sparkled. Next to her, Naruto felt his own interest peak. This was essentially the scientific framework for understanding chakra, just without the mystical terminology. The class was engaging, hands-on, with experiments and demonstrations. Naruto found himself actively participating, asking questions, making connections between the scientific concepts and what he knew about chakra manipulation. "Excellent observation, Naruto," Ms. Park said after he pointed out how kinetic energy could be stored and released, describing it in terms that directly paralleled chakra circulation. "You have good instincts for energy systems." After class, Velma was grinning. "That was impressive. You're applying chakra theory to scientific frameworks naturally. That's exactly the kind of interdisciplinary thinking that leads to breakthrough discoveries. I just connected things you already taught me, which is the essence of intelligence. Making connections, recognizing patterns across different domains. Naruto, you're smarter than you think you are. Stop diminishing yourself." The compliment made his chest warm. "Thanks, Velma." She smiled, then hesitated. "About last night, what I was trying to say before we were interrupted." "Velma, Naruto." Daphne appeared, slightly out of breath. "We need to go. Fred just texted. There's been another sighting at the quarry. Same chakra signatures as before." The moment was lost again, but this time Naruto saw real frustration flash across Velma's face before her analytical mask returned. Seventh period was study hall, which the whole gang shared. They used it to coordinate planning an investigation of the quarry for after school, while maintaining the appearance of normal studying. When a final bell rang at 3:15, Naruto felt simultaneously exhausted and wired. His first day of school had been overwhelming, intense, but not terrible. He'd survived without triggering any disasters, made a new acquaintance in Sam, and managed to keep up academically despite his unconventional education. But the DRC note, the quarry activity, the constant vigilance, all of it reminded him that his life would never be truly normal. As they walked to the mystery machine, Sam caught up with him. "Hey, Naruto. First day, survival achieved. How do you feel?" "Tired, but okay." "Cool. Listen, there's a school dance next Friday, kind of a welcome back event for spring semester. You should come. Good way to integrate socially, and I promise it's actually fun despite being a school-sponsored event." Naruto glanced at Velma and Daphne, both of whom had very carefully neutral expressions. "I'll think about it," he said, Got a lot going on right now. Fair enough. Offer stands, though. See you tomorrow. She jogged off toward volleyball practice, leaving Naruto with his friends in a distinctly awkward silence. A dance, Fred said thoughtfully. That could actually be useful from a social integration standpoint. Or that could be a distraction from more important concerns, Velma said coolly. Or there could be a chance to just be a normal teenager for one night. Daphne countered, though her tone was strained. They climbed into the mystery machine, and Naruto found himself in his usual spot between the two girls, both of whom seemed determined to sit closer than usual. Something was definitely changing in their dynamic, and Naruto had no idea how to navigate it. As Fred drove toward the quarry to investigate the new sightings, Naruto closed his eyes and tried to focus on the immediate problem, the DRC, the portal attempts, the threats to his safety and freedom. But his mind kept drifting to Velma's interrupted confession, to Daphne's protective gestures, to Sam's warning about powder kegs and explosions. His first day of school was over, but the real education about himself, about relationships, about the complicated territory between friendship and something more was just beginning. Thank you for watching my video.